A wagon rumbles along a quiet road through a valley, and a letter addressed to a guy named Derek drops a bombshell about the city of Militar and tells him he's got to know. Derek grips the folded note in his hands, eyes locked on the city he's about to race toward. He glances at the paper, a tiny smile spreads across his face, and the moment he speaks, you can tell it throws him right back to everything. The town's packed tight with houses, and that huge castle looms at the very back, but it didn't always run this smooth because of a few weeks ago in the rural city of Leighton, things were looking rougher than ever for him. At the blacksmith guild, inside the walls, someone gets hit with shocking news and freezes like they didn't see it coming. Derek just stands there frozen in shock, begging, "Are you really exiling me?" while the people in charge turn and walk away like it's nothing. The blacksmith is completely rattled, shoulders tense, and all he wants is one answer. Why is all this happening to him? The guild leader screams that Derek brings the guild nothing but dead weight, and then declares they have to cut him loose for the guild's survival. But Derek demands they spell it out better, and the guy just snaps back that it's basically a straight-up waste of money. Guildmaster Sinyan has zero patience for chatter. He snaps, yells that he's slammed, and cuts the conversation off like, "I've got no time for this." And just like that, they make it crystal clear. Derek is officially banished from the guild right now. Sinyan keeps yelling for him to hurry up and get out, like she's got way better things to do, so Derek awkwardly just waves, promises he'll leave right away, and then while the blacksmith storms off, totally baffled, the guild master's nasty smirk spreads across his face. Sinyan glares as he walks off, disgust twisting her face, and she thinks there's zero chance she'll ever let that guy come back. The door slams shut with a thunderous bang, leaving Derek stranded and alone, and after he finally pushes forward for a while, the wagon driver shouts that they finally reached the destination, and Derek immediately slips a little kid the toy he'd been working on, telling him everything's fixed. The kid's beyond hyped. He blurts out that the horse toy finally moves now, As the wagon lurches forward, the little guy yells a huge "thank you" over his shoulder at the man who just helped him. Derek stares at his battered hand and remembers the 30 brutal years he poured into the forge, back when every breath was all about his work. Derek lifts his hand to say goodbye, staring at his own reflection like, wow, I'm not the same anymore, and it finally hits him. He's officially an old guy now as he barrels straight into the royal capital of the Kingdom of Grossa. The whole place sprawls out, so packed with people and shops that it feels like light is drowning in noise and movement. He barrels through the roaring market streets, soaking up every crackle of noise and rush of city life until then it hits him he's never even left his hometown before. And suddenly getting kicked out doesn't sound so bad until he spots a food stall and he straight up asks the lady running the place for a recommendation, and she tells him to try the borkau loin, so he tells her it's perfect, drops a handful of coins into her hand, and she thanks him for coming by then. And he takes a bite, completely stunned because the food tastes unreal. The vendor says she hasn't seen him anywhere, asks who he is, and he blurts that he just rolled in from Leighton. He tells them, yeah, I was in the blacksmith guild. Then his voice cracks with an awkward truth: he got banished for real. A thunderous voice slices through the market chaos. Someone's yelling for attention, demanding to know what everyone thinks a particular falchion would cost. An angry adventurer huffs and shows off her broken blade, then screams that it couldn't even chew through a treat branch before the whole thing snaps in half. The guy she's ripping into just stands there, annoyed as hell, telling her she's probably messing up her gear setup. The crowd starts whispering like, wait, what's happening? And then it clicks, it's a traveling weapon merchant, the kind who only shows up once in a blue moon. The food vendor tells Derek, yeah, he usually brings solid stuff, but then drops the bomb. His reputation is straight up garbage. Derek glares and snarls, saying those sketchy guys like that are everywhere, creeping around nonstop. He wipes his plate clean, then tells the lady he's going to check it out, and she warns him to be careful as he heads off. Derek shoves through the crowd as the adventurer keeps yelling, and she reminds the merchant that he swore a steel sword would butcher the plant monsters. The merchant puffs up like he's been slapped, all offended, and fires off. Are you seriously accusing me of selling fake weapons? Then he flashes that creepy grin and dares her to stop talking and show him real proof. An adventurer is still seething, but her kid tugs on her sleeve, begging her to let it go, and she refuses hard. Isn't listening, he clutches that broken blade, and you can feel the weird, bumpy dents inside the metal where it snapped. Then When Derek rips through the crowd and repeats the merchant's claim that it's steel ore, he straight up demands, "Is that true?" So he steps right up and tells the guy to hold on, straight up telling him that lying isn't going to help him at all. The merchant and the adventurer just freeze and stare, because they can't believe this random guy is actually. Derek doesn't just step in, he leans in close and blurts that he's a blacksmith. Then he jabs a finger straight at the broken falchion and he drops the truth and tells the guy, "I didn't use steel ore at all. I forged the sword with cassiterite." The merchant starts panicking, sweating, and yelling that it wasn't him, then points at Derek and screams, "Stop lying." But Derek grabs the broken piece from the lady and says he has everything he needs right here, as he points out that scarred pattern in the metal, it screams one thing loud and clear. That merchant tried to pass off cheap cassiterite. Derek points at the blade's wavy ripples and says, "That's the dead giveaway. If this were real steel, those lines would be razor straight." The crowd explodes into buzzing chatter as people realize their own blacksmiths are saying the same thing, and one guy even yells that they need to run and hunt down the soldiers. The merchant tries to wave him off, but Derek closes the distance and hits the guy with a direct question. Has he ever stopped to think about the people who actually have to use these tools out in the field? He locks eyes with the guy, hit him with a brutal stare, and tells him to his face that a real blacksmith could never be that pathetic. Derek keeps the heat on, snapping that the guy has to level up and finally own the work he's putting out. The merchant starts trembling and snaps at Derek to shut up, clearly cracking under the pressure as he can't stand an old man preaching to him in front of everyone. He keeps muttering that being talked down to like that was a line too far. Then he lunges forward, snatches the sword's hilt, and grabs hold like he means business. Suddenly, the guy snaps, then barrels forward, blade shrieking as he swings, yelling at Derek to stop the lecture and just get out of his way. As Derek finally clocks just how out of control this is, everything spirals into chaos. He screams at everyone to back up now before someone gets hurt. Right as the merchant is about to strike, a stranger screams for him to stop and charges in to block the blow. A merchant surges forward with a sword swing, then a girl steps in out of nowhere, cutting the attack off cold. She's totally calm, like the blade right beside her doesn't even matter. Before he can even blink, she rockets him to the ground with one brutal hand. Ditching Derek behind him, he just stood there, utterly stunned at how lightning fast everything had exploded into chaos. The woman with braids and the crowd around her just freeze, staring in raw awe as the girl locks eyes with the guy sprawled on the floor, staring down at him with cold, razor-sharp intensity. She orders the soldiers to haul him off, and they snap to attention and salute her right away as the crowd erupts into cheers because the merchant finally got caught. Turns out she's the commander of the Grossa army, and Derek can't stop himself from staring in awe as he thanks her for the help, and she shrugs it off like it's just part of the job. She halts mid-step and stares at him harder, and then it hits her. His face feels wildly familiar, like she's almost remembering something as she starts probing like, "So you're really who I think you are?" And Derek just freezes there, awkward as hell, trying to figure out what's going on. He starts spiraling inside, thinking, "Great, I'm just some unemployed guy talking to a high-ranking official, and this is about to look really bad." He's sweating that he'll get arrested for being a creep. Then bam, she looks him up and asks if he's the teacher she used to know. The commander flashes a huge grin and tells him her name is Milital. Then she leans in, asking if he still remembers her from back then. She slips into a memory from 10 years back when he was the one who crafted a toy sword just so she could play. Derek's eyes pop wide when the realization finally slams into him. He can't believe how much she's grown since those kid days. Yet when she sees her old master again, the smile on her face hits the same joy as always. Milital insists he showed up for the letter she sent, but her own soldiers are left scratching their heads because none of them know who he even is. She tells her squad, "This is the guy who basically raised me. He took care of me while I was growing up." Milital decides to stay put and fire up a long, no-rush conversation. She tells her squad to leave without her, and the soldiers snap into salutes, declaring they've got the order. Derek's still reeling and straight up asks if she's really a Legion commander in the Grossa army, and when she says yes, he realizes it's all because of him. He thinks it's a huge promotion for someone her age, but she just shakes her head and flat out tells him it's not like that. She stares down at her sword and declares, like it's the truth with teeth, everything she's ever achieved was powered by this blade. The dudes in the back are totally baffled, like, what does a sword even have to do with this? But Derek tells her to draw it so he can finally see. As she yanks the blade free from its sheath, Derek freezes, his eyes locked on her with a frightening, serious intensity. He locks eyes on the pitch-black metal and realizes, this isn't just a blade, it's the Shinma, a rank S divine magic sword forged with a holy power. He starts losing control because a rank S weapon is basically a national treasure, but then Milital hits him with the truth, it was him who forged it. Derek's totally checked out, he can't recall a single second of ever forging a sword that even looks like this. Derek broods, convinced he just smeared his fingerprints all over a national treasure, but Milital tilts her head and tells him to probably say it differently. She tells him the toy sword he made for her didn't just stay cute, it actually grew into the real weapon she's holding today. Derek's jaw hits the floor when he hears the news. He completely loses it, because the whole idea sounds straight up impossible. He yells that he's never heard of any weapon pulling off something like that, and Milital admits she hasn't either. But then she tells him the wild truth. Every moment they spend together, that blade shifts and reshapes itself, until it finally turns into the sword it is today. She locks eyes with him and blurts out that the weapons he builds might have some hidden power, like they can evolve somehow. It glares at the hilt, then finally clicks. This legendary S-rank blade is nothing more than that same cheap little toy from 10 years ago. She admits it was just a kid's toy all along. Derek just stands there, stunned, because he can't wrap his head around what he's hearing. It looks like the weapon morphed because she kept pouring her heart into it, and her feelings only grew stronger with every passing moment. Derek is still totally lost, so Milital leans in and admits she's got a theory about why his weapons look so different. Milital glances back at the days of Enlighten and blurts that Derek's tools never truly got the respect they deserved. Then she can't stop wondering if anyone back then ever bothered to genuinely care about what he made, considering. She says the city was packed with rich adventurers who could buy brand new stuff anytime they wanted, and that enlightened people basically treated anything they owned like trash, just tossing it out like it meant nothing, and Derek stares down, admitting that as a blacksmith, that kind of mindset was always something he couldn't wrap his head around. He finally clicks. He'd been flinging things sideways before the owners could even build a real bond with their gear. Milital gives a firm nod, that's exactly it, and then his thoughts kick into. She locks eyes with him, calls him her teacher, and then drops the bombshell. She's got a massive favor she needs from him. She points to a detail he buried in his letter and it straight up stuns him. Then Derek blurts, "Wait, what are you really getting at?" And he can't shake the thought that this favor is somehow tied to her work with the Grosso army. But he has no idea how intense she is about to get when she leans in, tugging him toward her clothes. She lunges for him out of nowhere, clutches him tight, and begs, please be her personal, exclusive blacksmith. Derek just freezes on the spot, mind racing, absolutely stunned by the offer. Derek panics on the spot and slams the idea down, insisting there's zero chance he's doing it. He's not built for that kind of pressure. That's way too much responsibility for one guy, but Milital wouldn't take no. She dropped her head and begged him to please help them. Telling him he's literally the only one they can turn to for a favor like this, Derek keeps shaking his head, baffled, like, why does it have to be him? And why is he standing here staring at this? Milital fidgets as she admits they're trapped in a mess, and Derek replays every word back to her, so rattled you can practically hear the stress in his voice. But the adventure with the braids strides in out of nowhere, yanks their moment apart, and rushes in with a quick, embarrassed apology for crashing their conversation. Derek just saved her earlier, so she had to thank him. He looks totally shocked, while Milital hangs back, furious that the whole thing got interrupted. Even that shady merchant steps in, throws a salute at Milital, and blurts out thanks for everything she's done as the commander. And Milital forces herself to stay professional, notes it's been ages since the last ceremony, and admits she's just relieved they're not hurt. But then she snatches Derek's arm and blurts that she's in a massive rush. Derek doesn't even get a chance to react. Right before she hauls him away, he's still yelling at the top of his lungs, demanding where they're even going. Braided adventurer girl bursts into shouts, demanding they bring Derek his reward for earlier, then screams at everyone to come crash at the inn in the East District. Derek's grin can't help it, free lodging is a lifesaver. But when he opens his mouth to say he'll go, Milital snaps, tells him to shut up or she'll bite his tongue as she hauls him along. And she just keeps yanking him through the city streets like he weighs nothing, leaving Derek groaning while they vanish into the distance. Meanwhile, back in the City of Light at the Blacksmith Guild, where the real trouble is about to spark. Guild leader Sinyan is locked in front of his vanity mirror, preening like it's a spotlight, bragging that he looks absolutely unbeatable. He poses like a star, then flashes this massive smug grin and calls himself beautiful while he stares at his own reflection. He finally strides into the main hall to greet his staff, cracks a joke that the air feels way fresher now that Derek is finally gone. And before he even calls the morning meeting, every single employee jumps in with a loud greeting, ready to kick things off the moment he's set by chanting the guild's philosophy. But before he can even finish, someone shouts from the entrance and he snaps around, instantly hunting for whoever dared to cut him off. Sinyan snaps, "Who the hell are you guys?" Then watches a squad of high-ranking soldiers and an official march straight into the building like they own the place. Back at the guild, this fancy-looking kid barges in and asks Xenian if Lord Durrett is around. Right then, everything hangs on his next words. Sinyan's face twists with pure rage because he can't stand anyone acting like Derek is some kind of big deal. Later on, Nana Hikari finally tracks down Derek and greets him with zero manners, straight up calling him an old man. Derek clocked that 5 whole days had gone by and Nana Hikari only smirked back, telling him he'd get credit for actually showing up, not disappearing like a coward. A crowd surges in fast and everyone around the spot whispers through shaky breaths, acting on edge as word spreads about the massive scene about to erupt. Derek's jaw tightens and his forehead starts slicking with sweat, but Milital stays right beside him, staring him down with a stone-cold, serious expression. The moment finally hits, this official blacksmithing duel is about to ignite, and the whole crowd is buzzing with pure hype. An announcer's voice rips through the arena, screaming that the showdown between Lord Nana Hikari and Lord Durrett is about to explode into action. Nana Hikari and his maid stride out toward the middle of the arena as the crowd stares in stunned silence. The signal blares, "Forge the fire," the blacksmithing contest begins, and Derek and Milital are stuck on the sidelines, watching the pressure skyrocket with every second. Derek and Milital huddle together as the moment turns serious, and Derek looks absolutely wrecked with stress over everything that's happening. The whole crowd snaps into panic the moment the massive guy arrives. He's straight out of that legendary destroyer lore. Everyone's eyes are locked on the kid's sword. It's radiating this wild, impossible energy, and nobody can figure out what it is. Militia shrieks that they're playing dirty, and Derek can't even shoot back because he knows she's right. Nana Hikari smirks from the side and snaps that flashy sword is pure show, because it won't change a thing. The rules are stamped in stone: break your sword or step out and you're done, and that's exactly why Milital's fury keeps spiking higher and higher. Detrua looks his opponent in the eyes and bursts out laughing. He can't believe he's really been ordered to go toe-to-toe with a little girl. She doesn't say a word, she clamps her grip on that sword, and the strange energy keeps surging higher and higher. The official strides into the center of the ring, lifts his hand high, and commands the whole crowd to lock in. He slams the signal to go, and Detrua barrels in instantly, crushing the kid before she can even lift a finger. Detrua grunts as he launches his first move, throwing his full weight into a bone-crushing swing. A colossal blade rips through the air, and Comfy just barely springs back in time, right before it can flatten him. She braces hard as the attack's pressure nearly yanks her clean off her feet. The crowd starts cracking, screaming about the insane power like they can actually feel the wind blasting off that swing. Detroit keeps the pressure cranked up, barking orders at her as he carves another massive horizontal slash through the air. But he's getting more and more pissed that he still hasn't landed a hit, so he taunts her, mocking her, and asks if she can do anything at all besides run. He blasts out a brutal shout and whips into another swing, making Comfy tumble through the air just to survive the impact. She grunts as she slams down near the boundary, looking tiny under the giant looming over her. The crowd roars as Detrua bursts into laughter. He's got her trapped, and he's telling her she's run out of places to hide. Everyone watching goes pale with fear. Then one guy blurts out that he's absolutely not about to see the kid get turned into a bloody mess. Detrua looms over her, offering her an easy exit if she just quits right now, but Comfy snaps back. She's not surrendering, not a chance. His voice turns ice cold the moment he tells her, "You asked for this." And he looks absolutely livid, warning her not to regret what's coming as he tightens his grip on his sword. Comfy plants her feet, nerves buzzing in her chest, but she keeps her gaze glued to him. In the stands, Milital's mind races back to the commander who forged their training, while Derek explodes into cheers at full volume for her and for the sword he made. Detrua throws absolutely everything into one colossal overhead slam, screaming for her blade to finally snap through, But Comfy snaps back, swearing she'll never fall, because her sword starts crackling with wild, electric power. Suddenly, their clash detonates into a massive surge of lightning, blasting the entire arena with blinding light. The power surges so hard that bolts of energy rocket straight up into the sky, and as everyone watching Derek Milital, even Nana Hikari, just stands there, totally frozen, because the kid's insane power hits like a punch to the face. The shattered blade slams into the stone floor and somehow keeps standing there. The crowd up in the stands is frozen, no one can even find the words for what they just witnessed, and they're all standing there, sweating buckets, just staring in disbelief as one guy asks how the destroyer's sword got sliced, silently, no sound at all, while another is totally blown away by how razor-sharp that blade is. Watching Derek's reaction, he feels suddenly awkward, terrified he might have overdone the adjustments he made. But the announcer cuts through everything with a loud, roaring shout, "Comfrey is the winner," and the crowd erupts as the kid sprints across the arena, leaving. To tell Derek he actually pulled it off, he just flashes a calm smile, watches everything unfold, and then the commander blasts Comfrey with a loud, proud shout for the win, and right after that, they start celebrating. Detroit staggers away from the fight, looking like he's been drained of every last ounce of strength, totally out of it, and Nana Hikari just stands there, eyes dead, still and blank, like his brain can't even process that his champion just got absolutely destroyed by a little girl. Derek strides up to him and calls out the noble for their promise, demanding that he take his blacksmith work seriously starting right now. Lord Nana Hikari explodes, yelling at Derek to shut up and stop pretending they're friends, yet Derek just stands there with a relaxed smile, completely ignoring the meltdown. The noble storms on, yelling that he's quit his military blacksmith gig, and he starts threatening to sue every single person in the room. His maid stands right behind him, and the look on her face screams she's hit her breaking point. She says nothing, winds up, and lands a brutal slap that whips his head into a dizzy spin. Comfy, Derek, and Milital just froze, stunned so hard their mouths hung open, replaying what they'd witnessed in pure disbelief. As the maid bows with perfect manners, she begs for their forgiveness over her master's rude behavior, and swears she'll give him a proper tongue-lashing later. The whole group goes dead silent as they watch her march the dizzy noble and his fighter out of the arena, leaving. Nana Hikari burst out in a scream from inside the building, shouting that he'd never forgive that piece of shit, Derek. He snaps himself back into the fight and tells Dutrua, "We're hitting them in secret, revenge is the plan, and we're striking first." The destroyer just stares him down with hollow eyes and declares he's retiring, still seething because he can't swallow the fact he got beaten by a little girl. Derek strides through the endless hallway alone, replaying in his head how he's finally going to live in peace. Then he straight up says goodbye to all the drama. But back in the arena, Nana Hikari totally flips out, screaming at the top of his lungs about what a useless piece of trash Derek is. He snaps his rage at his own maid, jabs a finger in her face, and screams that he's done with her violence. Yet, she's screaming about how dare she strike her own master, but she just blows past it with a brutal, cold farewell and storms straight for the door. She stares at him with a totally blank face, then admits she's taking full responsibility for hitting him, and quits right there on the spot. Nana Hikari just scoffs at it, crosses his arms, and dares her, go on, if she wants to leave, then leave. As she strides off, she drops this casually ruthless line. He'd been using S-rank materials without a single shred of permission, and she even mocks him by calling him a lady to his face. She doesn't let it go, she digs in and reminds everyone that he was a total monster. The kind who terrorized everyone like a destroyer living right in the family mansion. Leaving Nana Hikari so stunned she couldn't move, then she blurted out that she'd already reported everything he'd done to his parents. He jolts back to reality and rockets after her, screaming that she's a traitor, while she marches out like she's done, finally cutting him off for good after he keeps hurling insults at her. Suddenly, a voice erupts through the room, bellowing Nana Hikari's name so hard it feels like the walls are trembling. And Nana Hikari's eyes snap wide the moment he realizes he's in real trouble, utter panic flooding his face then he spots his parents waiting, and when he yells, "Dad, Mom," he freezes because the air around them screams danger, and just as he leans, his dad snaps and starts yelling at him. How could he be so stupid, using materials meant for another country without even asking first? His mom jumps in too, just as furious, and snaps whether he's really trying to bury their family's reputation for good. Nana Hikari's father snaps, "How many times do I have to clean up this kind of mess? Nana Hikari starts trying to explain himself, but his dad cuts him off with one brutal line, "I'm done." Right then and there, his father slams the news, he's officially exiled, and Nana Hikari just stands there, absolutely stunned. But his dad isn't done. He whips his hand toward the guards and barks an order to haul Nana Hikari off to the forest of Taman right now. As the guards grabbed Nana Hikari, he started snapping, screaming that he'd do anything. "Just please, don't take him, let him go to that forest." He screams for his father and mother one last time, but they just turn away and abandon him to whatever fate comes next. It's pitch black midnight in the Taman forest, a seriously creepy place where Nana Hikari is straight up losing it. He hears all these terrifying sounds crawling out of the dark, and he bursts into a full-on scream as he whips his arms around like a madman, screaming at anything at all to get away, shaking with pure terror of the. Because he didn't just get in trouble, he got exiled to a hellscape crawling with monsters, and now he looks completely wrecked, staring at it like it's still chewing him up, thinking about how dare he, of all people, be the one who actually forged that Shinma weapon? It's chewing him up from the inside, and in that moment he finally snaps. He wasn't seeing talent at all. He was just jealous. He crumpled to his knees, heart sinking as he wished, desperately, that he'd never brought up that blacksmith contest in the first place, if only he could go back. He knows he should have come clean from the start, but while he's rotting out in the woods, back in the city, everything starts to turn around. After the big match, everyone crowds outside and Milital steps forward, speaking straight to the kid, telling Confi that in that blacksmithing match, he swung like a total pro, and he made the Grosso army proud. Confi bows and thanks the commander, but then she turns to them both and says this victory is theirs together. Derek, though, keeps his cool and insists he only forged the sword. Derek stays humble and tells everyone the real credit goes to Confi, the one who put in the most work. Confi gets completely flustered the second her name gets shouted like that. She's blushing hard, like it's burning her cheeks while she blurts out a desperate excuse and bolts off at a dead sprint, because all she cares about is one thing. They march in for that victory meet, and the other soldiers swarm her to shout congrats, all fired up because. And those military mentions hit hard like they just stumbled on something huge today. Derot only smirks, teasing that he's already excited for what her future has in store, and then the two of them pause for a beat, staring as the soldiers throw a celebration together. The guys are sprawled around, trading food and making sure Confi gets her share, because that win is the real goal. But then Milital marches to the front, turns ice cold serious, and yells for everyone to listen, because she's got a huge. She bursts into the air, shouting at the crowd that as of today, Lord Derot is. He gets officially picked as the Grosser Army's new exclusive blacksmith, and the whole place erupts. Everyone goes wild, cheering the old man who just saved their gear. Derek just stands there with a polite smile, but inside he's fuming, because the soldiers keep calling him an old man. We zoom straight into the Glossa Kingdom's massive royal palace, this giant white fortress of marble and pride, with towering spires that stab up into the clouds. Inside the palace walls, Senji strides alone through a silent stone hallway, torches flickering as his footsteps echo, right up until a voice suddenly booms down the corridor, screaming for someone to bring the thing out, right now. Turns out it's Sinyan behind all that racket, trapped behind bars, yelling that they can't do this to him and that they'll never get away with it. He keeps yelling that the guard's garbage won't cut it, refusing to negotiate, and while one guard can't stop wondering what this guy's really up to, the other finally snaps, "Pipe down." Senji finally slips into the cell, rubs his head, and lets out one exhausted sigh as the screaming rattles the whole place. As soon as he arrives, the guards snap to attention and shout his title, Lord Senji. Then he just nods back, praising them with a quick, "You're doing great," closing in on the lock. He shoots his hand toward the door, bam! A glowing magic seal erupts right in front of the bars. The lock clicks open and Senji snaps, "Sinyan, come out." The disgraced guild leader freezes, staring at the kid like he can't even process what he's seeing. The grind never stops. There's already a massive line of soldiers snaking out the door and disappearing around the corner. This kid is through the roof, yelling thanks to Dirate because his sword feels way lighter and way easier to swing after those repairs. Suddenly, the whole crowd swarms him. One kid begs for his sword to be fixed, and another yells for him to take care of his shoulder guard. Right as Dirate looked totally wiped out, then told everyone, "Just hold on a little, I've got to work through them in order." one thing's for sure now, he's officially the Grosso Army's exclusive blacksmith. He just sits there rubbing his head in confusion, staring at the massive crowd packed in, all waiting for him to finally get back to work at the forge. Down the hall, a bunch of kids are locked onto a display case, freaking out because the sword inside looks ridiculously cool and straight up gorgeous. One kid swears he'll be a Kamina user someday, but his friend fires back, "I'll get there first." And that's when the rivalry really kicks off, which makes Comfy step forward with pure determination, and she tells them, straight to their faces, that she's not about to lose to them either. She flashes a huge grin and swears she'll train harder than ever, so she'll finally become a wielder who's truly worthy of Kamina. As they talk, one of the kids spots a plaque on the wall and blurts out, "What's that S-rank achievement even about?" The kids huddled nearby and gossiped up a storm. Darrett's gotta be as strong as the commander, or even stronger. Because if he can't drop one of the 4 heavenly kings, what's the plan? Darret nearly drops his tools when he hears the news. He can't wrap his head around it. Milital actually took down a demon. One of the kids raves to him about how the Legion commander is absolutely incredible, and Darret can't help but wonder just how huge a name she's carved for herself. He can't help but feel awesome about it. Then he stares at his hammer and grins, loving the sight of the weapons he forged getting put to real use. The kids just won't stop hyping him up, calling him incredible for forging a sword like Kamina, and even one boy blurts out that he wants to be a cool old guy just like him. Darret's expression flickers for a second when he realizes they're still calling him old guy, but he shrugs it off before it can stick. He starts stuffing his things away and tells the kids, "I'm officially shutting down for the day," like it's the final bell, so he roars to the massive crowd of soldiers, "Come back tomorrow," and the moment it lands, the whole place floods with movement as everyone finally starts filing out. Miltal pops in right on cue with a huge smile, telling her master, "You nailed it today," and bragging about how packed his schedule has been. Darret claims this place hits even harder than Lighten, and it makes him feel downright fulfilled, while Milital just giggles, thrilled that everything's finally going right. Milital stares across the grounds and tells Darret, "Your hard work has totally changed these soldiers." And she explains that everyone's so pumped for the Kamina gear that lately they've been training like total strangers, reborn as completely different people. Darret grins and says it's the biggest honor any blacksmith could ask for, but Milital's smile vanishes because the moment she speaks, there's a catch. She dips her head and apologizes for the Queen's official decree. Darret looks totally lost, like he's trying to piece together what just happened until he finally remembers, yeah, the whole order was just to keep his wild high-end crafting and repairs at a steady, moderate level, and he confirms that's exactly what he's doing. Darret reassures her not to worry at all. He's got nothing against it, because he knows the whole military would have cracked in half if everyone was walking around with weapons that brutal. Milital flashed him a huge, relieved grin, like she couldn't believe he was handling the news this well then. Then she lets it slip that she's got something way bigger to say today, and Darret snaps, "Wait, what's happening?" She leans in and tells him the Queen wants to see him, right now, and he's got to sprint to the palace immediately. Leaves Darret frozen in total shock, sweat pouring down his face as his mind scrambles to make sense of it all. Darret's dizzy from the shock as he blurts out, "So you really mean I have to leave right this second?" And Milital just gives him a quick nod. He snaps completely, screaming at the top of his lungs and demanding to know why something like this is happening to him at all. Milital grabs his attention and tries to calm him down, telling him straight up that these summons aren't punishment. They're a reward for the insane grind he's been putting in for weeks. And she makes it clear, when she boosts the whole army's morale and keeps the national forces from slipping, that's the kind of massive win the higher-ups can't ignore. Darret just stood there, totally frozen, heart racing at the thought of some normal nobody like him meeting the Queen, while Milital hung on the edge of her seat, wondering if he was still with her. His eyes start spinning with nerves as he blurts out, "So, what kind of person is Queen Serenade really?" praying for good news. But Milital pauses for a beat, weighs her words, then tells him straight up, just to put it as simply as possible. The Queen's patience hits rock bottom the second someone she deems incompetent or useless steps into her sight. She sprawls on her throne with an expression so cold it turns fear into ice. In the main hall, 2 guys crawl on their knees and tremble, while the Queen leans in hard, demanding to know right this second who shattered the legendary sword. The legendary sword is a shattered mess, sitting in pieces inside its fancy display case like a tragedy you can't undo. Sinon can't stop fixating on the queen, giving her the creepiest stare as the queen straight up admits she fell for his slick, smooth talking. And that's when everything gets even worse. And then she tears herself apart, raging that she never saw how pointless he really was. She paces back and forth, boiling with fury over the fact that she let it spiral this far, then snaps her focus onto Senji, telling him to his face that he completely messed up this time, and Senji just shrugs it off, shuts his eyes, and tells her he's ready to eat whatever punishment she's got lined up for him. The queen snaps, screaming she hates losers, then swings the whip at him, and Senji erupts in a massive yell as the strikes keep landing. He doesn't beg for mercy at all. He snaps at her to hit harder and pour more spirit into every blow, leaving Sinon frozen, staring like, wait, what is even going on? Senji slams face first onto the floor, twitching like crazy, yet his face is stuck in this weird, happy grin. But the queen isn't done. She looms over the sign, whip in hand, and snaps that he's next. She rips into him with full volume insults, calling him a complete moron, then shrieks that she's never once heard of a guild master being dumb enough to smash a national treasure. And right as she unloads on him, Sinon starts screaming back. The queen keeps swinging her rage at Sinon, screaming that everything he's done has been worthless, and Sinon just curls up on the floor sobbing, begging her to stop, while Senji lies there like he's weirdly thrilled. But the queen isn't finished. She slams the verdict down and tells Sinon he's officially fired from being guild master, and Sinon just freezes, staring at her in total shock, barely able to get a sound out. His scream for answers ricochets off the castle windows and blasts straight up into the sky. Outside the palace walls, the chaos finally dies down for a breath right before Darret's on the edge of snapping as Milital drags him down the halls. Then she clocks the room, yanks him to a stop, and tells him they finally made it. But when Milital faces those colossal doors, he halts mid-step and blurts, "Am I really ready to go in?" Darret's drenched in sweat, mumbling that he'll probably need another full year just to get his head together for this meeting. His heart's slamming so hard he can actually hear it. Then Milital just stares him down like, "Tell me you're joking about waiting that long." She reassures him you'll be fine, as the guards snatch the door handles and she presses on, reminding him that the queen turns out to be surprisingly kind to anyone who's great at their job, right as the massive doors begin to swing open. The queen sits high on her throne, stares them down, and orders both of them to stand up and meet her eyes. So they both fire off a quick shout of respect, and then Milital steps up and officially tells the queen she's brought Derek. Darret is sweating bullets, stammering out his own name, fighting to keep himself together as the queen smirks at him. She praises the weapons he's been crafting, saying they're straight up incredible. She shoots her hand forward and declares she's giving him her full recognition. "Straight up, I told him he's the best blacksmith in the whole country." Derek pressed a hand to his chest, bowed his head, and told her he was absolutely blown away, beyond honored to hear those words. He just stands there for a heartbeat, like the world finally lets him breathe. Then the queen steps in and actually apologizes for every bit of trouble the Seven Stars Guild brought him, saying she's truly sorry she didn't spot his talent sooner. She keeps insisting her eyes are clouded, and Derek has to jump in and snap her out of it before she tears herself down like that. Darret tries to play it cool, but his nerves betray him as he tells the queen her eyes shine like pure jewels, while Milital just watches him fumble like it's entertainment. The queen lets out a sharp little laugh at his pathetic compliment, then tells him flat out that sure, he's a master smith, but when it comes to talking to women, he's utterly awful. Darret just stands there wearing that tired, awkward smile and gives a forced laugh, because deep down he knows she's 100% right. So the queen pushes everything forward, saying the reason she dragged him in is honestly simple, while the guard slides into place by the long table. She leans in and says they've got to talk right now about the damage done to a national treasure called the Amatsurugi. Darret's face twists with total confusion. He keeps blurting her name over and over, like he has zero clue what she's talking about. So the guard snatches the sheet off the table, and the queen snaps back that he couldn't possibly have forgotten it. She checks the blade inside the case and nods, yep, it's the Amatsurugi. Then Milital cuts in, asking for a second as they both lean in for a closer look. Darret freezes in front of the glass, staring at his own reflection, and realizing he's never, ever laid eyes on a sword this breathtaking in his entire life. Then the queen drops the bombshell. This was a massive scandal, because some noble got so obsessed with the sword that it somehow evolved. The queen lays it out. Some previous owner straight up snapped because of the sword's power, so they race to hand it over to the kingdom. Derek locks eyes on the S-rank blade and can't believe it evolved again. Then he realizes he still feels like a total rookie because he can't even remember forging it. Cold beads of sweat break out as he suddenly remembers. Everyone knows the queen has zero patience for anyone who doesn't know what they're doing. He scrambles for the right words, but his thoughts just keep spinning in endless circles. Finally, he snaps and confesses he's truly sorry, but then admits he has zero memory of ever doing anything like this before. The queen doesn't even get mad, she's blown away, yelling in pure disbelief that he forged a legendary blade, like he doesn't realize how massive that is. She burst into laughter and told him, straight up, he was seriously fascinating. Derek lets out a massive wave of relief. He's not in trouble, though his mind keeps nagging him that he still has no clue why any sword-obsessed nobles are involved. The queen snaps back into action and tells him she dragged him here for one reason. She needs him to fix the Amatsurugi. Derek stares at her, totally shell-shocked, and keeps blurting, repair, over and over like he can't wrap his head around what he's hearing. Derek stared down at the snapped blade, his mind racing, because even after everything the queen promised, this sword was still just broken metal, and that truth hit hard. And Queen's serenade isn't finished. She swings the doors wide, pulls them inside, and drops the bomb. She's got something else to show them. Suddenly, Sinyan bursts into the room like a rocket, smashes face first into the floor in front of everyone, and screams at the top of his lungs as he hits. Derek and Milital get totally blindsided. Milital snaps to it instantly, bursting out Sinyan's name the moment she spots him. He just sprawls there on the ground, looking utterly pathetic, sweating buckets after getting flung in like trash, and Then the queen's face hardens as she rips into him, calling him a liar who bragged he could fix a national treasure, only to destroy it instead. She locks eyes with Derek and asks, will you take that disgraced former guild leader under your wing and train him as your personal apprentice? The moment Sinyan realizes she'll have to work under the very guy he kicked out, her face twists into pure, jaw-clenching rage and total disbelief. He scrambles up to the queen, drops to his knees, and begs her to hold off, snapping that someone as useless as Dare can't be allowed to run anything. Queen Serenade won't even let him finish. She shuts him down on the spot, then looks him dead in the eye and tells him straight up that he's the only incompetent one in the room. The queen snaps at Sinyan to straighten up his attitude and the way he talks. Then she grabs him and he erupts in a blood-curdling scream from the pain. Derek just stands there, stunned as the whole thing unfolds, utterly freaked out by how intense she is and thinking about how terrifying she could get. The queen tells Derek she's assigning someone to keep watch on him, and before the moment even settles, Senji steps forward and introduces himself. Senji grins warmly at Derek and tells him not to stress. He's making sure zero trouble ever crosses his path. Derek just stands there with his arms locked across his chest, beads of sweat popping out because he knows he can't possibly refuse a direct order from the queen. So he shrugs and goes along, then slaps a hand to his chest and tells them, if that's the deal, I'm in. The queen leans in and says she can't wait to see what he does next. Then the massive throne room doors slam into motion and start shutting. Everyone crowds into the hallway when the doors slam shut with a brutal thud, trapping the whole group there, finally alone. Derek lets out this long, heavy breath and finally shakes off all that tension now that the meeting's done. He throws his arms up high, then admits to the crew that the whole ordeal hit way harder than he ever expected. Derek rubs the back of his neck, feeling the whole day pressing down on him. Then he tells everyone, I'm heading back to my inn for now. Senji fires off a question about where he's staying, and Derek points out that it's a place over in the East District. Senji offers to get the National Army to set him up with a place to stay, but Derek snaps fast, telling him he doesn't need to worry about any of it. He flashes a grin at them, basically saying, yeah, I'm right here, and trust me, this place is seriously awesome. As Senji gets ready to head out, he decides to walk with him for a while on the way back. The sun dips below the skyline as they push through the city, until eventually they land in the East District where Derek slams the brakes in front of a massive wooden building and shouts to the crew, we're here, this is the inn. He shoves the door open and yells that he's finally back, and the instant Taru hears it, a shockwave of surprise hits from inside. Taro beams with a huge smile as she welcomes him home, then admits she'd started to panic because he'd been gone way too late. Then Milital storms in, pure fury on her face, and declares she's staying for day 2, leaving Taro utterly stunned and completely lost. Milital stands there like she owns the battlefield, hands resting on her sword, zero fear in her eyes. She drops a seriously unsettling vibe as she announces that she's moving into the place starting today. Senji gets completely blindsided by the news, and while Derek scrambles for words, Taro nervously jumps in, promising she'll get a room ready for her right away. Taro snaps her focus back to Derek, leans in, and calls out to him as if she can't wait any longer. And she asks if they should start with a bath or dinner, so he decides they're eating first, because Milital is about to join them. Milital frowns in pure irritation as Sinyan hovers nearby, clearly teetering on the edge of his breaking point. He storms into the room and starts screaming, demanding to know why Derek is the one who always gets all the attention. Sinyan doesn't let it go. He slams the inn door with a loud shout, demanding he can stay too, and that chaos leads straight to. Genji straight up kicked him out of the room, demanding, "Do you honestly think you'd be allowed to hang around in a decent spot?" Teru looks like he's about to lose it, then blurts that the inn's packed solid because Milital's party's going on, so the only place left is the back stable. Sinyan is spiraling out of control at the thought of sleeping in a stable, until Senji snatches him up and starts hauling him away, barking that he should be grateful for what he's got as they rush out the door. Sinyan keeps yanking the spotlight with that "I'm the guild master" nonsense, until Senji cuts him off cold, reminding him he's nothing but an ex-boss now. Taru tells everyone to hold tight for a second, and as Derek slumps back like the drama drained him dry, Milital suddenly blazes in, calling him teacher on the spot. Derek snaps his gaze to her, totally baffled. Milital leans in and asks if he's got plans tomorrow night. Then he tells her his schedule's totally wide open. She breaks into this massive, blushing grin and blurts out, super excited, that the two of them should ditch everyone and hang out alone tonight. The next morning bursts in, right as a massive stone building looms ahead. A bunch of folks crowd the spot to meet Derek, and then one guy pushes forward, grabs his hand, and tells him he's heard non-stop amazing things about him. The man finally admits it. After that spoiled brat kicked them out of the guild, he was absolutely freaking out about what would happen next, so he tells Milital how amazing it feels to be back, and then admits it's been forever since he last saw the commander. Derek looks completely drained as the girls stare at him from behind, and he can't stop thinking about how insanely better life is now compared to before. Senji glances over at the miserable wreck, grabs Sinyan's arm as he shakes, and blurts that he can't believe there's someone out there even worse than Nana Hikari, because who in their right mind would dare break a national treasure, right? Sinyan warns that stunts like that usually earn the death penalty. Then he snaps at the guy that he'd better thank his lucky stars the queens in a merciful mood. But then Senji snaps his focus back to Derek and tells him the time has finally come, repair the Amatsurugi. The military officer nods hard, agreeing that Senji's right. Out of nowhere, one blacksmith screams, "Go on, I dare you," and slams a massive, heavy sack onto the workbench with a bone-rattling thud. He swings it open and orders Derek to go all in, and out spills a stash of wild treasures, larvae rock, aqua stones, the works, that leaves the other smiths completely stunned. Arms crossed, the guy growls that he's been hiding these top-tier materials for ages, because he swore Nana Hikari would never get her hands on them. He leans in and tells Derek that these materials will finally shine, once they're in the hands of a true craftsman like him. Especially since those pieces are about to rebuild a legendary blade, and the smith grins, because he knows they're finally about to be forged into the Amatsurugi. He stared at the cracked blade and with full conviction said, "There's no greater honor for a blacksmith than what they're about to forge." The guys raid the stash, and one of the smiths blurts that the quality of these materials is absolutely wild, while the suspense hangs there mid-word like. Derek cranes his neck at the workshop, swears he'll use every last thing for good, but just as he's about to begin, the lead blacksmith calls out, asking if he can stay and watch him work, and before the words even settle, the girls rush in right away. Derek yells back, telling them it's totally fine and they're more than welcome to come see it too. He refuses to stay and snaps his attention back to the blade, stunned by how gorgeous that sword looks the longer he stares. He just stares at it, dead silent, standing over the workbench like he's frozen in time, replaying one thought over and over. his past self was. Actually, it's wild. Cold sweat snaps onto his face the moment he realizes just how insane that level of skill is. He's about to find out, then doubts start creeping in, and he can't stop wondering if he's got what it takes to finally beat the man he used to be. While the other Smiths stood back, grinning like kids, thrilled to finally watch him get to work, and he slides you those watches with a calm, smiling face, then vanishes, leaving Sinyin in the back, miserable and seething with bitterness. Milital stares with stars in her eyes, totally hyped for what's about to hit, while Darrett yanks his glove tighter and hammers his own confidence into place. He swears he's about to smash his past work. The moment he gets down to business, the workshop explodes with the heavy clang of metal smashing against metal. And just like that, someone screams in pure disbelief as the newly refined amatsurugi sits there, glowing like it's alive. The other Smith stared in disbelief as he repaired it in record time, like that's exactly what they expected from the best. They swarm around him like he's a legend, demanding to know how he ever managed to slap a holy attribute onto the. They lean in with blade questions, grilling him on every move, then practically beg him for lessons, leaving Darrett with that seriously feeling and a shaky "oh no" on his tongue. Overwhelmed, he's getting hit with military jokes about how famous he's becoming, but he just grins and says he's proud of that weapon. He calls her out, saying she's definitely exaggerating. He tries to play it cool, but then his eyes catch something creepy in the back. Sinyin stands there fuming, eyes blazing, like he's 1 second away from losing his mind. Milital snaps at Sinyin that it's time to get to work, tells him to kick things off by trying to swing that hammer, but Sinyin snaps instantly, screaming at her to stop barking orders at him like she's his boss. Milital takes it badly. He launches into him with a brutal kick and roars at him to stop acting so damn high and mighty. Then she keeps stomping on him while he's sprawled on the floor, and Derek just watches, helpless. The moment Derek gets his feet back under him, the other Smith shoves a metal plate at him and orders, "Try flattening this," and Derek shoots back, warning him to not push it. Sinyin clicks his tongue, then snatches the hammer right out of his hands, like, seriously, watch this. The other blacksmiths step back fast, huddling and whispering, and you can tell they're freaked out about how they. Sinyin doesn't even flinch. He lifts the hammer high for a massive swing, and this is about to go down, but as that hammer slams down, the whole crowd freezes, because every single person realizes something has gone brutally wrong, and the next thing they know, Sinyin is thrashing on the floor, racked with unbearable agony. The blacksmith sprints over, grabs Sinyin's attention and demands, "Are you really okay?" But Sinyin just losing his mind, he screamed at the guy to back off. He didn't want a single drop of pity from him. Things spiral even harder when another Smith screams that it's dangerous, and Sinyin instantly loses it, panicking like crazy. In the back, the other workers mutter about the mess, and Derek looks completely fed up with it. And especially when Sinyin keeps ranting that nobody has the right to look down on him. One of the guys just lets out a heavy sigh and rubs his head, like he can already feel the disaster coming around the corner. Later on, the whole crew rolls into the local tavern to grab drinks and just soak in the moment, and just like that, they all crowd in and sink into their seats, ready to celebrate the huge news. Lord Dalet's exclusive new blacksmith is finally here. Everyone lifts their mugs and roars out cheers for the new job. Then Taro just locks eyes with them, looks dead serious, and demands to know what happened next. Taru scans the table and blurts out why she and Comfy were dragged into this, and Comfy just keeps staring around, checking if the whole crew finally showed up. Derek tells them, "I invited everyone myself," and points out that the rest of the Smiths and the soldiers are posted up too, only Milital's already there, slumped and wrecked, radiating pure cranky vibes. Milital downs her drink like it's her last night on Earth, and that's when Comfy completely snaps. She's yelling at the commander to stop at just one bite of food. Someone slams their mug onto the wood with a thunderous thud, then barks, "What did that comment mean?" and demands to know exactly what they meant, and then the talk swings straight to booze, and they start flaunting these strange Dalet dolls, each one rocking a different version depending on age, like tiny mascots tailor-made for the night. Cuffy only manages a tired smile, then lets out a deep sigh. She's way too late to stop the chaos, especially as someone else screams that the main event is finally here. Milital snatches one of the tiny dolls and snaps that they're doing this for real, then just leaves Derek standing there, totally baffled like, "Wait, why are we playing with toys?" One of the soldiers leans in and blurts that there's an extra doll in the pile now, and the guy beside him cracks up and shoots back that he's totally right. A woman nearby just watches it all explode, then snaps that they totally lost control, like going too far again. But Comfy snaps back and tells everyone to back off, because the moment the commander steps into this zone, he won't snap out until he finally crashes and falls asleep. Milital keeps downing her drink like an absolute beast, and Taro just stands there stunned, her image of the dignified commander completely shattered because she can't even process what she's seeing. Rage crackles in the adventurer's voice as she leans across the table and tells them she's heard every juicy detail about Comfy's huge blacksmithing contest. She tells Derek she heard he forged a legendary weapon for the kid, then thanks him for everything, while Senji just sits there, quietly chewing like nothing's happening. Derek puts on this humble act and tells her he's only doing what any normal blacksmith would do, but the adventurer isn't buying it. He fires back that Cuffy's way too modest because she didn't just fight anyone, she actually beat a guy infamous for crazy brute strength. Derek tries to dodge the spotlight again, claiming the win only happened because Milital trained him, and because he just had the comfort to swing for the guts and make it work. Senji just sits there, spoon still between his lips, staring dead ahead as he lets them volley back and forth like it's nothing. He blurts out of nowhere and grills Derek, "So when are you finally making a weapon for yourself?" And just like that, it catches the smith mid-sip. Derek stares at him like he's lost his mind, laughing as she asks why he'd even need a weapon. Because seriously, this isn't some adventurer's journey. Senji flashes him a huge grin and says it's an awesome idea, and suddenly Derek is standing there totally clueless. Milishal fiddles with a few little figures as he explains, if Derek actually uses these weapons himself, he'll finally understand what it's really like to be the one behind them. Then she teases that he'll even score extra time with a gorgeous upperclassman like her, total win-win. Derek agrees she's got a point, but then he stops mid-sentence, wrestling with the wild thought of finally owning a weapon of his very own. Weapons won't stop replaying in his head as he wrestles with the terrifying idea of switching from maker to actual user. Back in the workshop, Derek snatched up a chunk of metal and leaned in, ready to take the plunge. The forge roars to life, the chimney starts breathing fire, and right as he arrives, he's already on business. Later, Milital steps up in front of the ex-guild smiths and declares, loud and clear, that Derek is getting her to forge him a weapon. She beams at them and basically tells them, seriously, having a way to defend yourself is just common sense. While Derek jumps in, telling everyone that mastering the gear mechanics will sharpen his forging even further than before. The whole crew erupts into cheers, yelling they're 100% in on the plan, and they can't wait to watch his skills level up to a whole new beast. The soldiers hype themselves up and tell Derek, when it's time to actually use that gear, just hand it to the pros, and Derek just flashes them a massive grin and says, thanks for having my back like that. Then bam, out of nowhere, a thunderous voice roars, everyone stop and wait. Sinyan's on a full-blown rampage. He's screaming that he won't go along with the plan, raging that it's completely unfair. He keeps ripping into them, demanding they hand him a weapon too, and whining that he's being left out, while the rest of the guys just stand there, dead-eyed and bored. Suddenly, a hand shoots out and clamps onto his ear like it's the only thing that matters. It's Milital. She snaps at him to quit all that trash talk, marches him back to training, and then shoves him straight back to his desk. After the same old drama plays out again, the whole group finally collapses into one long, exhausted sigh. Then they're left standing there, stuck with leaving. Derek just stood there, nervously laughing, doing his best to keep up with the chaos. A little later, the story slams into the Grosso Army warehouse. Derek storms into the warehouse, digs through the supplies, and grunts as he shuffles everything around while he grabs a handful of stones, testing each one like they're clues, hunting for the perfect material for the job. He's grinning like a kid in a candy store, gushing over one amazing thing after another, while Milital just stands there, dead silent, staring him down. She finally snaps, demanding to know why he's not grabbing a single A-rank material, especially since he's allowed to take whatever he wants. But Derek keeps raking through the crates and insists, right to her face, that the low-rank stuff is way more than enough. He stares at the rocks in his hands, then snaps that he'd rather save the top-grade materials for the soldiers' weapons than waste even one on himself, because he's not about to stop his people from winning, not now, not ever. Leaving Milital utterly stunned because the way he keeps putting others first is downright selfless. She starts trembling and sobbing in that warehouse, and Derek is completely blindsided. She wipes her tears away and tells him, straight to his face, that no matter what happens, he's still a truly magnificent person. Derek lets out a jittery laugh and tells her she's totally blowing everything way out of proportion. Derek stands outside the workshop and he finally snaps. He's ready to dive in and start. All his apprentices swarm around him, firing questions about what he's about to build, and one after another they throw out wild guesses from axes to magic wands. He shoots them a shaky grin, scratches the back of his neck, and finally admits he's been obsessing over every last detail. And then boom, the idea of forging a sword lands in the conversation. Milital's excitement explodes at the suggestion. She grins and practically begs to teach him how to use one. But Derek shuts him down on the spot, and Milital just freezes solid in total shock, looking completely awkward. He basically says we all know exactly how this ends, and pictures himself accidentally stabbing his own leg, or worse, dropping the blade on his head. Instead, he drops that he's already picked the perfect tool, and now the military is left staring, totally confused about what he could possibly mean as. He reaches down and clamps his hand tight around the handle of his chosen tool. With a confident stare, he lifts it high and just declares to everyone, "I'm going with a hammer." Milital can't believe what she's hearing, and she blurts out, "You're really serious about using a hammer?" The whole crew goes speechless too, all stunned by that choice making. Derek leans in and says, "I swear I can finally use it for real." Then he shrugs it off like it's no big deal. At the end of the day, it's just a hammer. And it hits him like swinging a mallet, same rhythm, same weight, because he stands there, blasting the crowd with a grin, saying this isn't any stranger than the tools they already use as blacksmiths. So the apprentices snap back to their senses, shouting, "We get it now." And they go wild cheering him on, because this is exactly the off-the-wall thinking they always knew he'd pull. Smoke billows from the workshop chimney while sharp metal-on-metal clangs slice through the air like a non-stop rhythm as Derek finally steps out gripping a massive, heavy-duty block hammer, chest puffed up, and tells everyone it's finally finished, setting the stage for the next part of the chaos. To the whole crew losing their minds, they all swarm in, screaming about how badass the new weapon looks, and Derek leans over his work and just smirks, locked in place, because in his own head, he knows this masterpiece is unreal, even by his standards. But then it hits him, there's still one tiny problem left. He says the hammer still needs a name, and right. Milital bursts in with a massive grin, practically vibrating with excitement, and tells him she's got a brilliant idea for what to call it. All the apprentices are buzzing, yelling that this is exactly what they'd expect from their Legion commander. No joke, because they're already sure that whatever name she chooses is going to be top tier. And Milty clears her throat like a warning shot, forcing the room to go dead silent for the big reveal. She lets the suspense hang for a beat, then she flashes a huge thumbs up and declares right there with pure pride that the weapon will be called the Delete Hammer, then struts forward like she owns the moment and dares the group to tell her what they think, but she won't leave it at that. Derek just stands there, completely thrown off. He blurts out a confused sound, and the rest of the crowd stares right back with dead-eyed blank faces, like they have no idea what he's even making. Derek cringes hard because the name honestly sounds super lame, until right when his hope starts to die, the apprentices suddenly flip around and explode into wild cheering, like they can't believe it. Everyone starts yelling about how awesome and simple the name is, and they're all huddled around the weapon, pointing out how its massive shape fits that name perfectly. So Derek lunges in to stop them, flailing his hands like a traffic light and shouting, "Wait, 1 minute. You can tell he's not buying this name at all." But Milital and the crew are practically glowing with stars in their eyes, way too hyped to even listen, and Derek just lets out a miserable groan, because he knows he's cooked in this argument now that he'll. Then time slips by, the hype finally starts to calm, and it feels like the whole battlefield is locked in, because the new weapon is ready. And the entire workshop explodes in cheers, everyone absolutely buzzing, amped out over the brand new hammer. Derek figures things turned out fine, so he shrugs and decides to roll with it, while the workshop keeps roaring with activity as everyone hammers away on the Delete the Hammer. This S-rank holy weapon turns your magic into a blow that hits like a meteor, and it feels absolutely brutal. A few weeks fly by, and over at Training Ground 2, everything finally starts to kick into gear. Things are beginning to. Derek is out there practicing his swings, pouring every ounce of strength into blasting that massive hammer through the air. He looks totally locked in, eyes glued to the weight in his hands, and to how the weapon glides as the kid watching him says, "You've gotten so much better lately." And Derek just wipes the sweat off his face, grins wide, and throws back a thank you like he's proud of every bit of progress. Later on, Derek snags dinner with Milital, but his stomach twists because he's quietly freaking out about the bill, like he can practically watch his last coins sprout wings and jet off. Back at the old guild, Senji bursts in with a squad of royal guards and demands, "Is Master Derate here?" He blurts out that he's the palace's messenger hunting the famous blacksmith, and just like that, Sinyen's mood crashes into the ground. Senji steps up and tells her he's there with a formal request, and Sinyen just freezes, shaking so hard she can't even breathe as she spirals over how massive the success is of the guy she kicked out. Sinyen can't believe his ears. He starts shaking, blurting out, "Wait, you're really asking about the due rate?" The shock hits him so hard he can barely stand. Senji gets clobbered with a hard hit, then the guy screams at him, demanding whether they've got some business with the great guild master, but Senji cuts him off on the spot. Sinyen erupts into a massive tantrum in the background, but the messenger and royal guards don't even flinch. They just start walking away like her fury doesn't exist, while the guild master tries to look fearless, standing there with his hands gripping his vest. He declares that Derate is gone for good after he kicked that useless fool out. Senji totally snaps when he hears it. He storms up, yells at the guy, and demands to know what gives with kicking the blacksmith out, but Sinyen totally acts like he's above everyone. He shuts his eyes, flicks his hand, and declares that the guy squandered guild resources and never showed him a shred of respect. He smirks and declares the blacksmith got exactly what he deserved. Then Senji's hands start to shake, while the guards just stare, stunned, trying to figure out how their target could be truly gone. One of the guards blurts out how unreal this is, because the queen herself personally recognized a blacksmith this skilled, and yet Senji is right here, seconds from fainting from the sheer intensity of it all. Because the mess they've stumbled into is real. Sinyen just bursts into this dumb laugh and tells them to lean on him, while the guards snap to attention and realize they're in deep trouble. While the guild master cackles to himself, Senji snaps into focus and tells his team, "First, we find Derate, then we talk to him." Senji catches sight of the item and demands to see what's inside the box, but Sinyen jerks control fast. He yells that he's the guild master and he's way bigger than some nobody like Derate, so he goes ahead and pops the lid anyway, and the guards instantly snap, calling him an absolute idiot. While Sinyen gets slammed by that blinding light blasting out of the case, he can barely process what he's seeing, stunned beyond belief as his eyes catch the angelic treasure sword Amatsurugi, an S-rank holy weapon, pure legend, just sits there glowing like it's calling out to destiny. Sinyen's whole body starts trembling as he glares down at the blade, choking out a weak groan, because he's never ever laid eyes on something like this. He gushes that it's beautiful, like a real-life angel caught in the sword's power, until Senji blurts out that he brought it for Derate to fix. Then Sinyen snaps and loses it, screaming that it's a national treasure and demanding why Derate is the only one who gets to lay a hand on it. Senji lets out a heavy sigh, then drops a massive truth bomb. Derate is the reason they need Derate, because he's the one who forged it. The moment Sinyen hears the news, he just shuts down completely, like his brain hits a full stop right on the spot. It hits him like a punch. He spirals into a full-on meltdown as the thought that he kicked out a legendary smith keeps hammering his mind, again and again. Sinyen snaps completely, roars at them not to mess with him, and the whole crowd nearby goes stone still, staring in stunned silence. And he keeps screaming that Derek could never, ever forge a blade like that, so the guards have to shove in and drag him off Senji. But Sinyen just stood there, seething, grinding his teeth so hard it looked like he might snap, while Senji stood there looking totally awkward, trying to explain that it wasn't only about how it was made because turns out the Amatsurugi didn't just stay the same, it evolved, and now it's way more powerful than anything it used to be. The whole room feels like a pressure cooker as the guards keep Sinyen pinned back, while everyone else just stands there, staring as the chaos unfolds. Sinyen can't even wrap his head around a weapon evolving. He just glares at Senji and snaps whether he's trying to make a joke out of him. Senji doesn't even blink. He lays it out as the truth, saying the queen herself ordered them to hunt that sword right now, which makes Sinyen break into a sweat as he keeps repeating the words in his head, and it finally smacks him in the face that this is really happening. Then it all snaps. He yells that he's done, lunges straight for the case, and grabs the sword himself to fix it. And he shoots his hand out and clamps onto the blade's hilt, like he's about to make his move for real. Senji panics, lunges to stop him, and screams that Derate is the only one who can truly fix the sword, but Sinyen doesn't care. He barrels forward and he pushes on, claiming the greatest blacksmith is the one who earns the right to become guild master. With a terrifying unseeing stare glued to his face, he keeps whispering to himself over and over, he's the one, he's the real guild master, and no one else matters. Senji just froze in total shock while the person barked, "Kid, wait right there," and then Sinyin explodes into screaming at everyone to get out of that room, because the locals don't waste a second, they bolt for their lives. Alone at last, he stares at the sword and spots the blade's chipped edge. He brushes it off like it's nothing, convinced a wet stone will grind it smooth. He drops into a workbench seat and straight up admits he's never sharpened a sword in his life, but he swears he can pull it off just by watching the other guild members at work. He plants the blade on the stone and tells himself with zero doubt that he's got this, because his eyes are sharp enough to know exactly what to do. He's so full of himself that he thinks one glance is enough to master anything, and then bam. A brutal cracking sound slams through the whole place, then the guards outside jerk back because something inside goes terribly, instantly wrong. Senji rockets toward the room where the crash hit, shouting for Sinyin over the thunderous noise as the guards scramble around, checking frantically to make sure everyone's still okay. Sinyin bursts back from behind the closed door, snaps at them to shut up and go silent, because he's still trying to work. So Derek drifts back to his training days when his younger self grilled him with pointers, barking that his hammer swings were dragging and warning him to watch out for openings. The kid keeps the lesson rolling, breaking down how this weapon fights totally different from a sword, because it can flip into a shield, so they'd better drill on defense, not just offense. Derek grins, then says, "I've got this," and keeps right on rolling with the training. Back when they were just starting out, training together for real, and back then, Derek was a total wreck. His whole body screamed with pain from the workout, and when he tried to move, his body just gave out. But he didn't stop. He clamped his hammer in his fist and drove through the pain, pushing himself forward until he finally felt like himself again and assured the kid he was totally fine. The kid's face lights up with relief and he hypes him hard, basically yelling, "That's awesome. Now keep grinding, you've got this." The kid won't stop going on about the training, bragging that his hammer technique. Turns out he's dead wrong. This is way better than he ever expected. Like every year of smithing finally snapped into place, and then he starts to hesitate because what he's about to do is coming fast. And Derek keeps hammering away with everything he's got until the kid finally tells him, "All right, break time." He spots a perfect spot under a huge tree, drops down, and grabs a breath before the action hits again. Just as he's heading off, someone steps in and praises him. "You crushed it today," and Derek snaps his head up to see it's Militail, grin on his face, telling everyone he's got his hands full, hammering and training nonstop. Derek tells her he's actually loving it here, and she can't help but point out how thrilled the soldiers are to have him hanging around. On the practice field, one of the younger guys screams for Derek to watch his form, and Derek just stands there, grinning like he's finally stumbled into his rightful home. But someone else is right there, watching every second with a razor-sharp glare. Tucked on Militel's belt, a tiny cartoon keychain hangs there, Miltit and Derek both smiling like nothing can touch them. Derek spots it and bursts into laughter, then fires off a grin, asking if she's truly been wearing that thing the entire time. They're both posted up under this huge tree, and Militel finally glances over and asks if he's really fine with how everything's playing out. Derek snaps his gaze up to the sky and it hits him, really hits him, that when he finally stops to think it through. Lately, his life feels like a blur, guild, traveling, every face he's met, because it's all been a non-stop whirlwind of days. He knows that if that letter from Militel never landed in his hands, he could have ended up anywhere, and God only knows what he'd be doing right now. Militel just grins, staring out at the horizon, and you can tell these days in this brand new place have been pure gold for both of them. Derek wears this calm, peaceful look as he thinks, "God, I wish this could last forever." But then a stranger rockets toward them, screaming for a messenger at the top of his lungs and ripping the silence to shreds. That calm vibe evaporates the second Derek and Militel whip their heads around like, what the heck is going on? A soldier comes barreling in, yelling at the commander that a massive emergency is exploding right now. Military, then the whole thing whirls around and she blurts, "What's happening?" while the messenger gasps, struggling to get air. He finally forces the words out, shouting that something is about to go down in the stone tree forest. Turns out an iron bear has been spotted, and it's not just any monster, it's an A-rank anomaly that's way deadlier than the usual ones. Militel and Derek are left reeling, stunned, speechless, because they can barely wrap their heads around it. An A-rank just showed up. Rumors hit like lightning, and suddenly the whole crowd loses it. screaming that the anomaly's loose while everyone races to snatch their gear. Milital wastes no time, locks on with a grim stare and charges straight into the trouble, while Derek hurries right on his heels. Through the chaos, Derek whips his head toward her and he blurts out what that special exception anomaly even means, and Milital realizes she never once explained the term to him. She tells him straight up these monsters aren't just dangerous, they're vicious, off-the-charts smart, and in a league no other threat can touch. Derek admits he's never seen anything like that before, but it fits because they're such a rare spawn. So Milital tells you straight up, these things are furious with humans, and the moment they spot you, they'll come for your life. Derek gets completely blindsided. He blurts out, "You really attack just for staring at you?" And Milital snaps back, "Yeah, that's the truth." The idea that an aggressive monster is finally sinking its teeth into reality hits Derek hard, and he can't stop himself from thinking, how terrifying is that? Milital abruptly stops, apologizes for bringing it up right after that terrifying talk, then looks up and asks if he'll tag along with her group. Derek just freezes in place for a beat, staring ahead with a totally blank, emotionless face. He finally snaps and screams, demanding to know why he's getting dragged into this mess. While the rest of the crew scrambles to get ready, Senji just stands there, dead serious, staring like something huge is about to hit. Milital strides up in front of everyone, Derek right beside her, and with a colossal hammer in hand, he stands ready as Milital kicks off her briefing, saying that the Iron Bear has finally shown up in the Stone Tree Forest, and everyone's gonna know it the second they hear. Two girls in the crowd huddle together, eyes locked forward as the briefing keeps roaring on. Milital points out the target is strapped in metal armor, and there's this creepy black ring mark on its neck. She says they've got to figure out one thing first: can they actually use what they bring back from the hunt to make real weapons? Then she blurts the bombshell, Derek's coming with them, he's joining the mission. Every soldier's practically buzzing that a real pro like him is riding with them. Someone claims this is the perfect moment to watch their training finally shine, and Derek can only awkwardly blurt out a shaky hello. As they gear up, reality hits hard. Yeah, this stuff is brutal and the basics just won't cut it. A command snaps through the ship, everyone stays sharp, and the crew roars back, shouting yes like they mean it. And with that, the entire line of wagons rumbles out, charging straight toward the forest. A few hours later, Derek's boots hit the ground at the edge of the Stone Tree Forest, and he finally gets it. They made it. The whole crew finally pushes into the forest, and right away, someone whispers, "Man, it's insanely dark in here." Milital barks the order for everyone to scatter and begin the search, and the soldiers roar back in response. At her command to scatter, the troops burst into the thick trees and fan out across the ground, leaving. Milital, Derek, and Comfy huddle together, then Milital snaps, telling them they need to get moving too. They push deeper into the darkness, and all that answers them is the wind, whispering through the branches. As the trio strides through the woods, they stay locked shoulder to shoulder, moving as one unit along the path. Comfy starts trembling, then blurts out that the thought of real combat always snaps her nerves into overdrive. Derek blurts out that he's nervous too, and the kid's jaw drops in pure shock. But he flashes her a warm, reassuring smile and tells her everything's going to be fine because they've got Milital and her holy attribute with them, and she snaps back immediately, "I'm ready." Milital stays locked in, pointing out they've got the true advantage, because they're the only ones hauling the one piece of gear that actually works. And that's specifically the delete hammer and Shinma too, because she knows those are the keys to the whole mission, and as they move, that special blade swings at her side, already poised, like a loud promise of what they can do. The trio slips into a massive clearing in the woods, and Milital tells them flat out, any normal strike just gets stitched back together on the spot. Then she leans in and says weapons with holy power are only something a monster like Lord Dalek could forge. And she tells the guys straight up, the older blacksmiths already tried to forge with that monster's materials once and still couldn't get it to work. She stares at Derek and blurts out, "See, that's exactly why we need him." Then she laughs, teasing that hanging out with a drop-dead gorgeous upperclassman is basically a win-win for everyone. Derek replays it in his head and it clicks. If he can forge a holy weapon from those materials, they'll finally have the real shot to crush those terrifying unique anomalies. Milital nods along and her comfy cheers say, "I'm 100% sure Derek can pull this off." But then bam, every single one of them stops cold, because something from the shadows just snagged their attention. Out of the brush, a whole swarm of goblins with clubs bursts in and smashes the group's defenses, totally catching them off guard. Comfy completely snaps, shrieking that she's about to get eaten, while Derek just stands there clutching his hammer, looking just as freaked out. Milital stays ice calm, counts 5 of the creatures, and her gut screams that with this many hanging around, a nest is close by. Goblins creep in, their eyes locked on the group, clubs lifted high as they brace to strike. Derek glances at Milital and demands to know if she's really gearing up to fight them, and she shuts him down fast. There's no way. Since there's no bounty, she's not spending a second on them. She barrels in to scare them off and push straight on toward. She reaches down to snatch up a fistful of tiny stones, and the moment her eyes lock in sharp, deadly, she fixes on her targets. She fires the rocks with deadly precision, asterisk, crack, asterisk. They smash into the goblins' heads and the whole crew staggers back, writhing in pain, unable to steady themselves in. And it works like a charm. When she makes her move, the monsters shriek and bolt straight back into the bushes to escape her. The goblins whip around one last time, faces twisted with pure frustration, but they don't slow down as they bolt onward, still leaving. Derek just stood there in dead silence, stunned by how effortlessly she handled the whole situation. Right when it finally feels like things are calming down, another pair of goblins bursts out with clubs up, hunting for a fight. Comfy snaps completely out of it, eyes wide with pure terror as the monsters sprint closer and closer. Milital spots them closing in and screams, "Everyone back." She's ready to jump in and stop them, but then Derek suddenly darts right past her, her eyes go wide, and she blurts his name as he clenches that massive smithing hammer and hurls it in one brutal swing, blasting every single goblin flying through the sky. Milital and Comfy are so stunned they can't even blink, they just stare at him, mouths hanging open in pure disbelief. The goblins slammed into the ground, crashing and tumbling over each other into a chaotic, jumbled heap before they scramble up in a blur and rocket back into the bushes, sprinting like their lives depend on it. Derek just stands there, grinning like he can't believe it, telling them that every bit of training finally paid off. Comfy starts clapping and yelling military cheers, and both of them are totally through the roof at how he handled it. Comfy stares up at him with pure stars in her eyes, then tells him he's straight up incredible for how he handled those goblins. The military chimes in, 2 of them, saying it's seriously impressive that he's already hit this level after only a few weeks of training. Derek's face flushes bright red, he scratches the back of his head, blurts out a shy thanks, and you can tell he's never been hit with this much praise before. Milital fires back at them to keep moving, and Derek nods. Yeah, they've gotta jump back onto the path and push through the woods to finish their trek. But the second they start walking, a colossal crack booms from the trees, so loud it freezes all 3 of them in place, right in their tracks. Comfy snaps, she's yelling, demanding to know what that sound was, spinning around like she's about to bolt. As Derek pivots toward the group's worry hits his face hard. He turns to Milital and demands to know what's really going on. Milital's face snaps, stone cold serious. She orders both of them to back up and get behind her right now. The woods suddenly go dead quiet, just that empty path split between the thick trees waiting for. The 3 of them freeze in place, waiting for the noise to reveal itself, eyes locked on the dark brush like they're about to strike the moment it moves. A strange light suddenly bursts out from the dark bushes, blasting Derek in the face and leaving him totally unprepared as someone shouts for them to move, and right now they've gotta scramble out of the way of whatever's flying at them. But then a massive, twisted wooden limb plummets from the sky, so huge that Milital can only freeze and stare up at it. As the impact rips through the ground, the whole area gets swallowed by a massive cloud of dust and a storm of falling leaves. Derek just froze in place, eyes bulging, utterly stunned by the sheer power behind that hit. When the dust finally settles, a massive crater gapes where the path used to be, and the 3 of them are scattered. And everyone looks wrecked. Comfy is trembling, Derek's sweating buckets, and Milital is so stunned she can barely get a word out until Comfy shoots them a worried, "Are you okay?" while a panicked yell rips out of her. She's trying to make sense of what's happening, but her brain is still scrambling through the close call. She thanks the commander for saving her, but Milital snaps, "Good, now don't drop your guard, because the real threat is finally here." Out of the trees steps a giant bear in full plate armor, and it's ready to smash everything in its way. Milital spots the monster as a special anomaly, then Iron Bear Derek freezes, eyes locked on it, shaking as he shouts that it's absolutely massive. Milital tells Comfy to blow the whistle right now, and when that giant bear locks eyes with them, the girl shoots back on it. Comfy lifts the tiny whistle to her lips, takes a quick breath, and readies herself to blast a signal to everyone else. A sharp, high-pitched blast slices through the woods, and the folks nearby instantly freeze, turn turn their heads and stare around like, what the heck was that? With Darrett and Comfy watching from the back, Milital steps forward and declares she's the one who's going to take down this monster. She lunges for her weapon, shouts Shinma, and steps into the fight like, now you'll finally see what I'm truly capable of. The blade snaps free and a brutal flash erupts through the air, so blinding everyone nearby has to blink hard as she stands there gripping a sword forged from pure light and snaps at the bear to get ready, then dares it to draw its own blade. Everyone in the crowd goes dead silent when Shinma's blade suddenly morphs like that, and they can't wrap their heads around the fact that it's turned into nothing but pure white energy. The ultimate showdown is locked in and Armored Bear squares up against Milital, her glowing weapon blazing, while the rest scramble to keep their distance. The Iron Bear squints, locks onto Milital, and then, suddenly a streak of movement tears past the giant beast at lightning speed, so fast that Darrett and Comfy are utterly stunned. Then Darrett snaps, yelling that Milital just disappeared out of thin air. She launches into her Godspeed dance, vanishing into a streak of blinding light. Then the bear roars and a storm of energy-charged slashes hammers its armor from every side. Darrett can't hide the stress as he stares at all this chaos, but Comfy's right beside him, totally pumped up like he's ready to fight. Milital rockets up into the sky, vaulting over the monster's head to snatch a perfect opening, but once she hits the ground, she spots smoke crawling out of the bear's armor, and she can't believe her attack didn't land. Staring at the towering beast, she realizes the monster somehow hid every vital spot. Then the bear's massive foot slams into the ground, and the whole world bucks with a violent shake as it stays standing. Milital is totally blindsided by what's unfolding in front of her. That giant armored bear just looms there in the middle of the woods, looking like a full-blown tank that somehow grew fur. It suddenly shifts its weight with a thunderous crack, like it's about to unleash something. Then a whole swarm of massive nuts erupts and rockets toward the group from every single direction. I zeroed in hard, locking onto every moving thing with crazy laser focus, and in the blink of an eye, every projectile gets slapped aside and crashes to the ground like it's nothing at all. Darrett is straight up losing his mind, yelling that it's unbelievable he managed to block every single nut that came flying at them, while, as Comfy jumps in, she yells that the Legion commander is insanely fast and makes sure everyone hears it. Milital locked eyes with the beast, swearing these special anomalies have way more brains than anyone ever thinks. But that bear isn't finished, so it launches a full-on charge and Milital snaps at the guys, warning them it's coming straight for them. Milital doesn't waste a second. She barrels into the chaos, declaring she'll take care of it all by herself, and she refuses to budge as the giant bear roars inches from her face, trying to cow her into backing off. The clash explodes out of nowhere. She whips her blade around in a blur, and the light from it flashes straight back in the beast's eyes. Milital's grunts crack out of her as she fights to keep up with the monster's pure, overwhelming power, but the bear slams its full weight into her, and she's barely keeping it off her with nothing but her sword. Comfy spots the moment the monster's about to strike and screams at the commander to brace himself, now before it hits. As Darrett watches those massive claws rise to strike, he realizes he can't just stand there. He has to move, and right now. He barrels in, swinging his massive hammer, screaming for the beast to take this, right now, and he lands a perfect strike on the bear's jaw, swinging so hard the brute spins out of control. The armored bear gets hurled backward like a toy, skidding through the dirt and smashing straight into the brush. Milital shoots Darrett a grateful nod for stepping in, but the moment she does, her face tightens, she looks terrified and tells him, this isn't over yet. Comfy blurts out that she'll sprint off to grab the other soldiers. But Milital snaps at her to stay put as the armored bear hauls itself back to its feet behind them. The second the monster bursts forward, everything blurs, way faster than they ever expected, snagging them completely off guard. The beast zeroes in on the kid sprinting straight for comfort, while she just stands there, completely frozen, and then the bear rips loose with a thunderous roar, charges headfirst, and nearly pins them flat in the dirt. Milital clenched her teeth, glaring like she was personally at fault for letting everything spiral into this dangerous mess for everyone. Derek screams in sheer panic as the monster surges in on both girls at once. But Milital manages to snatch Comfy at the very last second, skidding across the ground to pull her out of harm's way. Comfy snaps her head up in total shock, just barely processing that she's been pulled out of the beast's deadly charge. That little kid starts falling apart, dropping to his knees, bowing hard and screaming at the commander, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry for everything. But Milital only winks at him, tells him to chill, and brushes it off like those few scratches are nothing at all. Derek stares at them and instantly panics, freaking out over what he's supposed to do now that Milital's bruised and battered beyond belief. He stares out at the woods and realizes Comfy blew the signal whistle, and still, not a single soldier is showing up. So he clenches his tool like his life depends on it, swearing to protect both of them no matter what comes flying next. Then he slams the brakes and it hits him. Just trying to block the monster isn't the move he needs to make. Then it hits, those eyes lock in, and he charges forward like he's about to erase the problem completely, zeroing in on his target. That armored bear just stands there like a living wall, totally oblivious to the disaster about to slam into it. Derek goes completely silent, sweat pouring as the pressure crushes him. He throws every ounce of power into one brutal command. Then boom, the beast's metal leg armor crumbles into black dust and rains to the ground. Derek grips his hammer and stares down the monster, then a strange black light spills from it, and before he can even blink. And then it hits him. This glow is identical to the one he keeps spotting when he hunts for flaws in blacksmithing materials. He's noticed it before, but now it finally clicks. He realizes if he treats that monster like a chunk of raw metal, he'll spot its weak point and just. Right then, massive dust erupts out of nowhere, blasting straight in front of the beast, and Derek freezes, totally blindsided as he screams, demanding to know if that thing just blasted him with pocket sand. Sweat pours down his face and he looks totally baffled. But Milital is right on his heels, eyes locked on every move as the tension explodes even higher. The armored bear isn't finished, it roars and brings that giant, metal-clad claw crashing down at him. Milital shrieks for him while Comfy freezes in total fear, convinced their teacher's about to be done for, but Derek digs in, plants his feet, and winds up for a bone-crushing swing. Because once he's got his hammer, he's about to win. He throws every last ounce of himself into that strike, swearing he'll spill every drop of his mana into this single shot. Derek unleashes one last, thunderous strike that blasts so hard the whole area trembles. Then boom, a deafening blast rips through the woods, smashing a massive crater in the middle, and hot steam billows up from the center as the armored bear crumples into nothing but a pile of black ash, and Derek just sits there on the ground beside his hammer. And he's frozen in total disbelief, eyes locked on the wreckage as he whispers, "What the hell just happened?" On the ledge, Milital and Comfy are spiraling, and Milital screams down to ask if he's okay, while she rockets down the cliff to reach him. Derek is still trying to wrap his head around his own power, so she snaps, asking if he seriously has no idea he just did this. She yanks his arm and blurts that the second he swings his hammer, a blinding light erupts and swallows everything. Derek stares at the massive hole in the ground, voice trembling as he asks if he truly did this. Then Milital just nods and tells him, flat out, that it was all his doing. As they trudged back through the wreckage, Derek just waved it off like, "I was probably in the zone." But Comfy doesn't care about the power at all. She barrels into him in this massive hug, sobbing that she thought he was gone for good. Then he just grins, tells her he's sorry for the scare, and lets the tension melt. Milital hears rustling in the bushes nearby and whips her head around, while Derek sits on the dirt, comfy and still. Still sobbing into his chest, Milital steals a look back with a shaky grin and tells him it's only the soldiers who were supposed to be. Finally, the squad rolls in as backup. Then they hit the site and just stand there, gaping at the massive hole like it's a nightmare come to life. Left in the earth, one soldier can't stop wondering how much power that hit truly carried, while the others whisper and stare at the bear, realizing it's completely dusted. It's like a meteor just slammed the place, but Derek doesn't even flinch. He keeps patting Comfy's head like nothing happened. Peering through the sea of trees, he finally lets out a breath, because he knows his own strength held them back. They stay safe from that thing. Then a few days later, back in the city, the military shows up and prods him, daring him to finally ask how he's holding on. Derek says he's still pretty sore, but he'll be fine. Then he asks the same thing and she says she's already totally fine. Derek just stands there, lost in his own thoughts, wishing he could have that same young spark. And then Milital's got him patched up in a flash, and then he blurts out, "Was that forest under military control?" And Milital answers, "Yeah," totally baffled by why he'd ask. Derek starts trembling and panicking, jabbing at his own chest as he spirals, like, "Wait, am I the one who has to pay for all of this?" The forest lies torn up by the damage, and Milital just stands there, stone-faced, staring into nothing, until she breaks into laughter and tells him there's no chance in hell that's happening. Then she starts explaining that they're doing the exact opposite, transforming the whole place into a monument so the battle gets remembered for the next generation. She beams and tells them with zero hesitation that they've already officially christened the spot the Delete Crater, which just leaves Derek slumped at the table, completely wiped out. Then, a little later, he tries to. He changed the subject fast and admitted he could hear a brutal storm of shouting coming from inside. Miltel nodded and said that everyone outside is absolutely buzzing on the training grounds. The energy is just exploding. Pretty intense. One of the leaders rips into the soldiers, yelling they're pathetic, like they can't even measure up to a guy like Derek. He tore into them, drop everything and start over right now, then ordered 1,000 push-ups. Milital beams and says watching Derek's work really lit a fire under the soldiers, while Derek just stands there, sweating like crazy, praying she isn't serious. But the kids already feel it in their bones, charging through the woods in a full-on sprint while Comfy yells with pure, non-stop energy. Derek's hard work gets cheers, and right when Comfy stops to salute the commander, she declares she's off to pound out 10,000 laps around the perimeter with. Derek just stands there hollow-eyed like his soul got switched off, and the thought of someone actually chasing 10,000 laps at all breaks his brain. And Milital admits that training like that every single day would probably wipe them out. Derek just lets out a long sigh like, guess it's okay as a one-time deal. They both freeze for a heartbeat, staring as that Comfy jogger vanishes down the road. Until the little girl suddenly slams on the brakes, whips around with wide-eyed shock, and blurts out Milital's name. Milital blurts out what's going on, and Derek, dead serious in his own joke, asks if she's already done with the 10,000 laps. Then Comfy just stares at him like he's insane, insisting there's no way that could have happened. Right then, those fancy boots are clicking closer and closer to the spot. Every second makes it louder, and it. Then plot twist, they're not alone anymore. A booming voice cuts through the air. A guest from the Glossa Academy of Magic has just arrived. Milital asks if they're expecting someone, and the girl stepping up suddenly realizes she's right on schedule. She flashes Derek a warm smile and tells him, "Can you believe it? 15 years since we last saw each other." Derek just freezes there, staring into nothing. No clue who this girl is or why she's calling him Lord. Back at the guild, Sinyan is soaked in sweat, face twisted like he's about to keel over from a heart attack because the sword he was crafting just cracked in a clean snap, split clean down the middle right on the workbench. He starts spiraling, pounding the same "this is awful" over and over as his head whirls like a storm. Because shattering a national treasure is the kind of crime that screams you're done for, and nobody's going to let that slide. He's fully spiraling, yelling at himself in a frantic panic like, what am I even supposed to do now? I just ruined something that mattered. What have I done? He gapes at the shattered blade, frozen in pure disbelief, terror clawing at his chest about what's about to happen to him, but he clamps down on his panic, fires up his secret deep breathing technique, and forces himself to stay calm long enough to hunt for a solution. Sinyan's eyes go wide in an instant, and the moment a desperate plan finally clicks, he realizes that. So if his sword shatters, he can just snap the pieces back together, meaning he immediately starts frantically tearing through his storage crates. He lets out a shout of pure relief when he finally digs up a bottle of temporary adhesive liquid buried at the very bottom. Sunlight blazes over the guild as the mountains stand silent on the horizon. Sinyan finally slips out to greet his guests, firing off apologies for the wait, while Senji just shrugs and says he's right on time. But the second the kid reaches out to check the work, Sinyan snaps, calling him an amateur and barking that the sword is too delicate to even touch. Senji tries to fire back, but Sinyan snaps into defense and fires off the question, does the kid actually think his skills are questionable? Senji panics and blurts, "That's not what I meant," while Sinyan just grunts, turns on his heel, and walks away. He lifts the sword with a cocky grin, asks if it looks good, boasts about how spotless the repair is, but Senji squints at the metal blade and asks if it still looks chipped, and Sinyan snaps back, insisting he's just imagining it. Sinyan snaps into defense, yells at Senji to shut up since he has zero proof, and then he decides to. He shoved the sword back into the box, convinced that once it was packed tight, he could just blame any damage on the shipping crew later. But the moment he drops it into place, a brutal snap erupts from inside the crate, and the sword pieces clatter across the floor in front of everyone. Sinyan goes completely frozen, while Senji in the guard just stares as the whole mess unfolds. Sinyan starts sweating buckets, his face turning ghost pale the second he realizes there's no hiding it now. The guards don't even pretend to be impressed, they just glare at him like they're passing instant judgment. The rest of the staff is totally mortified, hands slammed over their mouths like they can't even breathe, wishing they were anywhere else right now. Senji just stands there, frozen in pure disbelief, staring at that busted metal like it's the end of the. Then he goes, "So you're saying that sword was already fixed?" And Sinyan freezes, stammers, and blurts out excuses that make zero sense. While Sinyan freaks out, the other blacksmiths hang back and do nothing, watching their boss snap, spiral, and torch the guild's reputation. Sinyan's drenched in sweat, acting totally clueless like nothing just happened. Then he insists it's all really weird, because he's dead sure he fixed it the right way. Derek just stays hunched over, shaking with pure rage while Sinyan tries to laugh it off. And this dude even has the nerve to joke about turning it into a two-piece sword now. That's the last drop for Derek. He yanks Sinyan up by the collar and roars at him for being a total screw-up, and Sinyan immediately panics, like he can't even figure out what just flipped in Derek's head. Derek doesn't even blink. He hurls the guy across the room like he's nothing, and he keeps screaming that Sinyan shatters everything he grabs and that he never should have trusted him. Meanwhile, Sinyan just curls up on the floor, firing back that he's being rude. A sharp, icy voice suddenly slices through the room and shouts Sinyan's name, leaving. Senji steps forward with a death stare in his eyes, whips his finger straight at him, and declares, loud and final, he's under arrest. Sinyan's face goes stone, still the moment the truth finally slams into him. No excuses left, no time left at all. The story yanks us out of the guild and drops us into the calm streets of Grossa, like everything's finally back to normal for a moment. Right when someone starts bragging that everything finally calmed down after that brutal mess at the blacksmith guild. Derek kicks back with a cup of tea and somehow looks totally chill as he drops the bomb. He got kicked out of his old guild. Milital sits opposite him, trembling with rage, and blurts out that she can't believe they'd kick out a blacksmith as talented as him. And she starts losing her cool, stabbing her cake while shouting the guild master is the definition of incompetent, and that pretty much makes Derek's nerves spike. On the road outside, a carriage rockets away, while a guard inside the commotion barks at the passenger to sit still and behave. Turns out Sinyan's trapped inside, pinned between two guards with handcuffs biting his wrists, and he can't stop asking how his life spiraled into this nightmare. He just sits there, teeth clenched so hard you can feel his frustration building, right as he spirals about Derek, he convinces himself hard that every bit of this mess is the blacksmith's fault. Sinyan's eyes turn pitch black as he hardens his resolve. He's going to get revenge, no matter what it costs. Back at the Grosso Army headquarters, the soldiers are drilling non-stop while one guy rushes to apologize for turning that whole personal blacksmith mess into a huge spectacle. Milital leans in and tells Derek she'll hear him out for now, and Derek nods as they stride past the guards. Milital charges ahead through the grounds, gesturing as their destination finally breaks into view. She leans in and tells Durate, "Look right ahead is the official smithing facility for the Glossa army." Durate stares in pure shock at how massive the place is. He even shrugs and says it's exactly what he expected from the National Army, because this building is absolutely gigantic. Milital doesn't waste a second. She yanks the door open and shouts for everyone to come in, making sure they all know she's here. Inside, the workers are cranking away, but the moment he sees her, the front guy clocks it instantly, and he screams to the Lord Commander. Then the entire crew throws everything aside and lines up on the spot. One guy barks a command so they can salute as military and slow down the walk-in. Milital keeps her cool, orders everyone to stand at ease, and as Derate follows her, he looks genuinely blown away. But the workers can't stop staring at the stranger by her side, so one of the guys finally blurts out to the commander, asking who the man behind her really is. Milital flashes a proud grin as she introduces him, saying this is Lord Derate, the legend who forged her magic sword. The entire room freezes into dead silence as the smiths just stare, utterly stunned they're standing face to face with the man who forged her weapon. Durate flashes a shy smile, rubs the back of his head, and tells everyone, "It's great to meet you, my name's Durate." The workers start whispering right away. One guy is so stunned he can't believe he's face to face with a legend, while another shrugs and thinks he's just an ordinary old man. The gossip won't quit. Everyone's staring at Milital like, is he getting played? Especially because the sword cinema doesn't even carry an official maker's mark, so the whole room feels icy with doubt. Nobody can bring themselves to believe this plain-looking guy just pulled off making a weapon that everyone recognizes. Milital snaps the conversation to a new target and throws out the situation that's unfolding right now, so she So she demands to know where Lord Nana Hikari is hiding, and the workers go stiff and awkward, admitting there's a serious problem with that. They point at the empty forge and say the guy did almost nothing, then he just vanished out of nowhere. Durate suddenly feels like this is painfully familiar, because the workers swear they tried slipping the guy hints about how he's slacking, yet nothing ever clicked. Durate asks if this is what she meant by those circumstances back then, and Milital just nods, because the truth is that Nana Hikari doesn't just have a job, he buys his spot by hurling massive stacks of money at the National Army, keeping himself locked in as their exclusive smith. Turns out this dude is the Duke of Felgrand's only son, basically living the kind of life where everything's set up for him from the start, no questions asked. Where he can do whatever he wants, Milital snarls that he's a total jerk and a useless blacksmith, but they're stuck swallowing it all because of his family name, and it leaves. Milety's stuck on this idea that annoying people are the same in every world, so Milital snaps at him to step up and prove what real talent looks like. But then, the door slams open, and someone strides right in like they own the place. Nana Hikari swaggered into the room dressed way too fancy, then immediately started grumbling that the shop was roasting and stuffy as hell. Standing there, he flashes that smug, sparkly grin like he's the one in charge of the whole place. Nana Hikari's name rips through the air, and suddenly Miliashal and all the workers freeze, totally caught off guard. Durate just locks eyes with him, stunned at how insane it is to show up to a workshop dressed like that, because it screams Sinyan. Militil demands to know where he's been, and he shrugs it off like it's nothing, says he was out on a date. Then, when a worker asks about the urgent repairs, he glances at the sword like it's just another thing, like it's no big deal at all. Nana Hikari casually flings the sword aside and tells them here, like it's nothing at all. The blade slams onto the floor, and one of the workers jerks back and blurts out a shocked yell, while the others can't wrap their heads around it. Darrett snaps at him, barking that he has no business swinging an unsheathed weapon. But Nana Hikari just smirks and strikes a smug pose, teasing, "So the job's not perfect." Darrett shoots out an awkward, forced "thank you," trying to keep the peace despite the tension that's about to snap. That obvious tension in the air. Durate just stares down at the weapon, completely drained like he's done and it's about. You can clearly tell that sword has been through hell, and nobody's bothered to maintain it at all. The whole group freezes in silence for a beat, then Durate snaps, realizing Milital's got a real shot at getting through, and yeah, they've gotta help with this guy. Then Nana Hikari snaps to her feet and shouts at them. Durate freezes, completely caught off guard, wondering what's about to hit him next as he slaps a hand to his face like a tragedy hit, then starts griping that he went through hell to fix the sword, before anyone even gets a chance to react. He snaps, then grabs Durate by the shirt and screams in his face, demanding to know why he looks so miserable after all that work. Durate just freezes in the dark, staring into the shadows like the whole wave of drama has finally pushed him past his breaking point. Suddenly, Nana Hikari yanks him by the shirt and starts shaking him like crazy, and the whole place erupts in chaos. Workers nearby stumble back in pure, stunned shock. Durate just freezes wide-eyed because this guy has the audacity to demand that if he's really a blacksmith, he better fix the weapon the right way. Then Durate's left standing there, completely stunned, while the younger guy snaps and starts yelling, demanding to know what the old man wants, and telling him to let go right now. Milital shoots in to stop the chaos, orders Nana Hikari to calm down, then drops a jawbreaker. Durate is the legendary smith from Lighton, the one who forged the Shinma. The kid freezes instantly, face turns death pale, and stammers out a confused answer, stunned by who he's actually talking to, and then his words just trail off like his brain short-circuits mid-sentence. And Milital keeps the heat on, basically saying that if you've got a top-tier smith like him, teaming up with Durate as a two-man crew should be totally effortless. Nana Hikari goes silent for a heartbeat, eyes sharp as she weighs everything, then snaps to a brand new plan. He rakes his hair back and tells Durate he wants to see just how good he really is, leaving Durate stuck on what he means by skill as he throws his arms wide and blasts out, "Alright, let's settle this with a smithing contest." Nana Hikari tells them both they'll forge a sword and use it to fight. Whoever breaks first loses. Then Darrett just nods along and says, "Got it, He raises two fingers and tells you, straight up, that this whole mess hinges on not one, two conditions. He jabs a finger at that pile of junk and snaps that Darrett can only use what's right there, and then For the second condition, he spots someone far off, and that's the person who will actually swing Derek's sword in the fight. Every single person snaps around, staring at that tiny kid standing all alone in the middle of the crowd. The girl introduces herself as Comfrey from the beginner class, and Derek just stares, completely baffled, like he has zero clue what's going on. He can't wrap his head around it. He blurts her name at the top of his lungs, and the terrible truth hits him. He's stuck at a brutal disadvantage. But Nana Hikari just lets out this long, heavy sigh as the little girl starts flailing her arms like she's trying to get her attention. Derek crosses his arms and finally agrees to the job right as Militul loses it, freaks out, and starts yelling at him. Nana Hikari declares the deal is finally sealed. Then Militul groans because she just realized there's no turning back now. Nana Hikari jabs a finger in the air and roars that the huge showdown hits in 5 days, warning Derek if he fails. Nana swears he's getting thrown straight back to the middle of nowhere. Derek crosses his arms, fires back with his own demand. If he wins, that kid finally has to take his blacksmith work seriously. Nana Hikari snorts, turns his head, and promises Derek a special exception. Derek can use the local forge, only for Derek to stare back like, "Okay, why are you being so damn stuck up?" Militia bows so deeply her forehead almost hits the ground, apologizing for everything getting out of hand. Yet Derek waves it off, and right away the crowd starts whispering like the commander's in trouble. That little girl is a mess, practically in tears, totally overwhelmed, saying she only came by to get her sword fixed, not to get dragged into some insane duel. Derek locks eyes with her and tells her, "Don't worry," swearing he'll forge a sword that's basically unbreakable in the fight, so Everyone suddenly goes silent. Then he whips his head toward the forge and starts explaining how you can forge top-tier gear even when all you've got is a pile of junk. That's exactly how a real blacksmith proves his grit. He shoots them a confident wink, then tells both of them to back off and trust him with everything. Two girls stare up at him with sparkling eyes, absolutely fired up and fully inspired. Smoke curls from the chimney as the real work finally ignites. The forge fire howls and the heat surges, blazing through the stone of Enda, rising fast as if it's alive. Derek stands in the middle of the shop, staring like, "Wait, my dear ink stash is actually enough." And just as he figures it out, the door knows CKS. He yanks on his thick leather gloves, blurts that it's finally go time, and then Militul strides in, saluting him like, "Yes, sir." Derek asks her if she wants to see him work for the first time in forever, and the second he tells her to hang back a little, she lights up, gets totally pumped, and agrees. Militul slips into the corner and drops onto a bench to stay out of the way, while Derek plunges his tongs into the blazing heat to yank out a glowing chunk of metal. He glares at the anvil, locked in, because the sword he's forging demands every one of his intricate plans. Every blueprint he's ever studied, every detail he's ever mastered, are already etched into his mind as he zeroes in. He exhales, then slams the hammer down with everything he's got, blasting a massive flash of light across the room as the steel finally takes the hit. Militul watches him with a grin, already daydreaming about how insanely awesome that hammer sounds. Sparks burst everywhere as Derek slams back into work. He hasn't gripped a hammer in weeks, but the second he falls into the forge's rhythm, that blacksmith blood of his starts boiling like it's alive. A massive grin rips across his face because he can't stop himself. He absolutely adores smithing. He grabs a minor thunder moonstone and slams it into the blade to crank up its sharpness, because he knows it'll boost the weapon's cutting power sky high. With laser focus, he declares he'll forge the ultimate sword for Comfy, no matter what it costs. He drops into position to finish the job, locked in on the fact that this is exactly what he's supposed to be doing right now. Derek lets out a tiny sound as he's finished, and Militul freezes, staring like, "Wait, are you really done already?" As she points out that after 30 years of forging, his smithing speed is on a whole other level, he just shoots back a quick reply. Derek starts to sweat as he stares at the results, swearing they must be a mistake, because if that's an S rank, it's way higher than he ever expected, yet some stubborn part of him insists it can't be true. Militul asks if Derek isn't pushing a little too hard on this one, and Derek just chuckles it off, though you can tell he's kinda embarrassed. In the courtyard, the recruit's shouting cuts through the air. he's yelling for everyone's attention because she's bursting to reveal Derek's sword is finally done. She hurries over and orders Comfy to come with her. The whole crowd erupts, whispering that Derek's the top-tier blacksmith around, and his speed is so wild it's basically unreal, making he'd plop into a comfy pose, snap to attention, and ask, "Wait, is it really done already?" Derek just stood there with the blade in hand, admitting the whole thing happened way too fast, so he stares down at the hilt, then grins and gets ready to flex the masterpiece he just forged. He raises it to the sky and lightning tears through the air. Then the blade reveals itself as Kamina, the S-rank lightning sword. Everybody watching just snaps silent, mouths hanging open in pure disbelief at the raw power blasting off that weapon end. With the crowd buzzing about the wild energy, Derek thrusts it into Comfy's hands and warns, "Be careful, this stuff is deadly." Comfy gapes at the glowing blade in pure awe, convinced it's the most beautiful sword she's ever laid eyes on. Milital settles in close, locks eyes with her, and says Derek poured his entire heart into forging this blade, so she's gotta give it everything just to stay alive. Comfy raises her glowing sword and salutes, swearing she'll live up to it. Live up to those feelings, because when the blacksmithing duel is about to begin, Milital boldly declares that she's taking full charge of the kids' training. The soldiers in the back start cracking up because they know exactly how brutal their commander can get, and they start to mill. And Milital snaps into action, telling Comfy to get ready. The brutal training starts tomorrow morning. Comfy looks totally terrified, but somehow he manages to. As the sun sinks over the city, she stumbles over her words, trying to force an answer out. Everyone's screaming for her to go all in. But over at Nana Hikari Manor, the noise is deafening, because that young noble is losing it, screaming like his lungs might blow out as he rants. His father's done something to him, and now he's losing it, because his beautiful arm has a red mark, and he's screaming that it's all completely over. Utterly unforgivable, he slams himself into his seat, fuming so hard he can barely breathe, then snaps for his maid again, and she looks up, saying, who's clearly fed up with his non-stop whining, as she shuts him down with a short, blunt reply. Nana Hikari's still on edge after his father's visit. When the agent slides up to the table, he snaps upright in his seat, eyes locked on him, looking completely freaked out. He realizes that sure, his maid nails the job, but somehow she still sends chills straight down his spine. He thrusts his arm at her, barking that she has to dig up some proof, anything, so he can sue his old man, but again doesn't even blink. She cuts him off and says she's not doing it. Nana Hikari snaps, demands what she means, and then so she grabs his arm and starts wrapping it with a bandage anyway. While she works, she casually tells him the young master's arm is honestly, she's fine. She ties the knot shut, then looks him dead in the eye and straight up says, "You're perfectly healthy." Nana Hikari grumbles to himself as Agent moves on, firing off questions about that weird pile of glowing rocks sitting on the table. Nana Hikari snaps back into confidence and starts boasting about the S-rank treasures he snatched from the family vault, dragon scales, flame stones, the whole insane haul. He orders her to haul the stash to the best blacksmiths in the whole country and forge a legendary, top-tier blade. Again only nods, saying she gets it, and then she slips out, leaving her trail. Nana Hikari broods in rage by herself, fists clenched, swearing she'll get revenge on that old man no matter what it costs. It's training day 1 and Milital is geared up, fired up, and ready to launch into action. She tells Comfy that 5 measly days will never be enough to truly level up as a swordsman. Derek watches from the side. Milital grits his teeth and admits they have zero clue who that spoiled brat Nana Hikari is about to choose as her next opponent. Derek just stands there, visibly freaking out over the whole mess. Milital lays it out plain. The whole point is keeping that sword from snapping before the fight even ends. She locks eyes on her, asks if she's got it, what she needs to do, and the kid shoots back, "Yeah, I've got it." All she has to do is dodge and parry every single hit coming at her. Milital shrugs, says that's fine, but when it comes to the rest of her training, she whips her sword out so fast it leaves the air itself, doing a comfy little jump. She shoots forward, screams that Comfy is about to learn the hard way through her body. Before he even launched high into the air, he yanked the whole moment forward, leaving those Comfy standing there, stunned because the real training was finally underway. Derek keeps his eyes on the training from the sidelines, but then everything snaps. He erupts in shock, yelling out as Milital whips her sword through the air with ruthless speed. Comfy's face drains of color, because that blade is screaming straight at her. Right in front of her, Military barks sharp orders, telling the kid, "Don't block with the flat. Grab it with the blade's edge instead." She manages to stay standing, throws her cheers into the air, and for a heartbeat she feels unstoppable, until. But Milital refuses to slow down, she barks for the next round, and Comfy fights to stay locked in even though pressure crushes down on her and the militia barks at her again. Snatch that incoming hit with her blade or it's over. Metal clanged on metal and echoed across the training ground, and somehow Comfy keeps her feet planted, steady, unshaken, and then it hits her, her eyes widen in shock because she realizes she actually did it asterisk, and she's only just catching her breath when the military just disappears out of nowhere and Comfy whips his head around in full panic, demanding where the Legion commander went right as. Then the military shows up right behind her while she clamps her sword to the kid's neck and snarls that the match is over, leaving Comfy completely stunned. Milital keeps the heat on, screaming at Comfy to never drop her guard in a fight and then demanding if she's trying to get herself killed, while the kid can only blurt out non-stop apologies as she's sprinting to keep up, and even while she's struggling, she turns back to Milital and begs for one more round, desperate to prove she can't be stopped. She can. Derek just watches from the sidelines, stunned that this is way too intense for a first day of training, and just like that, it finally slams into her. Comfy drops hard onto the dirt, total dead weight, her words cutting off as she can. They stagger, sweating and choking for air, and she still manages to thank Milital for the lesson, even with her body looking like it's about to give out. But Milital drops a bombshell, saying that starting tomorrow, they're jumping straight into training with the Kaminas. Comfy just blurts out a pathetic little reply from the ground as his military turns to Derek with a grin and orders him to get those Kaminas ready. Derek's already drowning in stress, but he snaps back, yelling that he'll get it done. Night drops over the world, the moon lights everything up, and the stars glitter all around. In the mess hall, everyone packs in together, all hungry, all gathered for one loud, shared meal. After that brutal workout, the kids are absolutely going to town, shoveling their food down like they haven't eaten in days. One of the guys at the table leans in and says training with the commander is basically like getting dropped into a real war, and it's only going to get crazier from there. Comfy instantly goes bright red, blurting out if they were really watching her out there. Then the boys just smirk, confessing they'd been lurking in the shadows the whole time, and that's when they kick off this whole conversation about how insanely impressive she is, how wild it is that she can match Milital's pace even though she's so tiny. But Comfy has zero patience. She shoves food in her face and snaps that calling her tiny is totally uncalled for. The guys crack up until one of them clocks that she's basically done, and then she straight up shoots up, announces to everyone she's heading out for the night, and the guy beside her is stunned that she's finished that fast. The boys just slide right back to their meal, laughing and chatting as they tear through the bread, and as Comfy starts down the hall, a voice booms her full name, Comfrey. She freezes mid-step, and just as the world pauses, she gets a total surprise when someone drops a giant warm towel over her head. She's thrown off for a split second, and while the older boys grin at her, they warn, after a workout like that, don't you dare catch a cold. Comfy flashes a quick polite bow, then slips right past them and heads on. Derek freezes in the shadows for 1/10 second, eyes locked on what happens next. Beneath the blazing full moon by the castle, he spots her and calls out. There she is, all by herself in the field, swinging her sword like she owns the dark. Comfy lets out a fierce shout and pours every last ounce of energy into her training, launching herself into the air to jump and slash with wild precision as Derek locks onto every move. Right after she finishes her set, she wipes the sweat off her face and gasps for air. Then Derek strides over and tells her she crushed it. Comfy snapped her head up, totally stunned to find him standing right there, and blurted, "Wait, is that really you?" Derek just flashes her a warm, reassuring smile and leans in, asking what she's doing training out here this late. So she laughs it off and says this is her usual nightly routine, then tells him she's chasing the commander any little bit closer, even if it's just a step. With a huge grin, she blurts that Milital is basically her idol, which Derek finally nods. He tells her he understands, but once he remembers how brutal Milital's training is, worry hits hard, so he has to come check on her himself. Comfy tells Derek that was truly kind of him, and he scratches the back of his neck, second-guessing if he'd just been nosy, but she quickly assures him it's totally fine. Comfy stared at the glowing weapon, heart pounding, because there was no way she'd let such a gorgeous blade get wrecked on her watch. She had to make it happen. She throws her entire heart into it, praising that sword like it's pure magic, sparking with crackling thunder and sending a wild tingling rush through her, while Derek just stands there, listening as she pushes forward, and it totally blindsides him. he freezes, silent for a heartbeat. So Cuffy tilts her gaze up at him with worry in her eyes, asking if he's okay. Then Derek snaps back to the moment like. He throws out an apology for barging in, tells her he's got to head back right now, and lets her wish him a good night. Then he starts strolling down the empty street beneath the street lamp's glow, the sharp asterisk thud-thud of his boots pounding the pavement as he flashes back to the look on Comfy's face, how razor-focused she was, and how that sword wasn't just a tool to her, it was something she truly loved. It really hits him hard because he can't stop thinking about how long it's been since anyone truly praised a sword, and he remembers exactly how much he forged to earn that respect. And honestly, he can't even remember the last time his heart hit like this. Sure, it's been a while, but as he walked, he makes his way home through the quiet night, and then, just like that, a small, honest smile finally lights up his face. Derek gives himself a quick nod of confidence, then turns and starts walking off. Deciding it's go time, he barrels down the street, humming under his breath, already plotting how he's gonna fix up Kamina next. 4 days slam by, and the story snaps to a massive mansion where someone yells at the guildmaster, and you can practically see the dude's patience shatter. He's so pissed he looks 1 second away from exploding. Nana Hikari snapped her sword toward a jittery blacksmith and demanded, "Why am I holding air ink?" as she fumed that it has absolutely zero flexibility. The blacksmith's drenched in sweat as he desperately tries to tell them the truth, that grinding S-rank materials is brutally hard, but Nana Hikari just snaps at him, calling him an incompetent fool and ordering him to get the hell out, and the poor guy starts to plead for his pay, so Nana Hikari glares him down with a terrifying stare and asks, dead serious, if he should just pay with his life. Nana Hikari spins around and snaps an order like a command, forcing the Asian guy to sprint, because she's hauling him straight to her room. She just left the agent standing there, then calmly told him she understood. Detrawa, the strong-armed destroyer, storms into the room and demands his master answer one question. Was he called for? Inside, Nana Hikari's just relaxed, kicking back while he grabs his cup of tea. Detrawa braces himself against the wall and lays out the entire situation for Nana Hikari and his maid, like he's sealing the truth into place. Nana Hikari slams her hands on the table, fuming that sword was supposed to be S-rank. But Detrawa just shrugs and tells him rank doesn't matter one bit, and he shrugs, saying it doesn't matter what weapon it is, he's going to snap it clean in half no matter what. He starts straining, yells that he'll do it exactly like this, and then bends a thick metal bar with his bare hands. Metal clangs echo off the floor, yet Nana Hikari just sits there, silent, unmoving, like she's holding her breath. Detrawa just snorts a little, crosses his arms, and acts like that was the easiest thing in the world. Staring at the wrecked metal on the floor, you can tell this match is done for, before it even has a chance to begin. Nana Hikari flashes a smug grin and goes, "This is fun as hell," even though he's secretly calling the whole thing a drag. Nana Hikari kicks back with his tea, orders his maid again to make sure his parents never learn a single thing about this, and again just nods fast, promising she'll keep her mouth shut. But she just stands there, staring with a totally blank expression. On the big day, the sun is blazing, and the smithing contest is finally set to explode into action. After Nana Hikari gets kicked out of the family, a mysterious voice lurks in the shadows and demands agents spill the latest on their secret plan. Alone in the courtyard, Agent steels himself and must deliver the crushing truth. Every part of the plan has fallen apart completely. Because a top-tier blacksmith, Derek, showed up out of nowhere, snatched the spot, and became the Grossa Army's exclusive smith. The person she's talking to snaps that they don't tolerate failure. Then Agent crumples to the ground and blurts an apology like her life hangs on it. Her voice cuts in and tells her she's still got some value to them then. In the mirror's reflection, a shadowy figure lunges into view, whispering that they're granting her one last chance to finally get it right. Agent keeps her chin low, then tells them, "I'm truly honored you're being this kind about all of it." That shadow in the mirror wraps it up by grinning and saying he's got sky-high expectations for what's about to hit next. Leaving Agent stood there, utterly drained, like every ounce of energy got ripped out of them after that meeting. Later on, this random girl bursts in front of the group and Derek stares like, "Wait, who are you?" And when she realizes he doesn't recognize her, the shock hits her hard. And she just stands there, hair draped over her eyes, radiating pure mystery until. Then boom, her whole face lights up as she introduces herself, Izu, and calls him Lord Durate, like she's carrying this intense, heavyweight aura that hits the air. Derek starts breaking into a cold sweat because the energy she's giving off feels so hauntingly familiar, it's freaking her out. Then it hits him like a switch flipping, and suddenly he's back in those childhood days, running around with them nonstop. Izu's just glowing, finally remembering, and then she starts glowing and practically bouncing with joy, telling him how thrilled she is to see him again, while Milital stands off to the side, glaring like she's one step away from exploding. Izu starts slipping into her own little world, blushing hard, rambling about how she can't stop thinking about him. Right then, Derek tries to play it off as just tired, but Milital's had enough. She jumps in and tells the girl to back off from him. Izu spots Milital and blurts out, "Legion Commander," while Derek just can't stop staring at the fact that she's still lugging that doll around everywhere, which makes Izu burst into laughter as she tells Milital that deep down, she's still just a kid. Milital takes that joke way too far. Her smile vanishes, rage builds like a fuse, and she's about to snap, and she stands there radiating pure dark energy, and then she drops the truth. She's done playing around, and she's finally ready to settle things with Izu once and for all. The two of them lock eyes, and sparks practically burst out of the air between them. Derek stumbles in, drenched in sweat, begging everyone to cool off by asking Izu if she came here for a reason, and right away, she sees he's dead on. She starts telling Derek she's there to talk to him about something, then boom, loud footsteps slam out of nowhere as someone yells for her. And there's this short mustached guy glaring at Derek like, "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" While Izu steps in and introduces the new face as Vice Principal Bayer. Izu blurts out that Derek is the National Army's exclusive blacksmith, and Derek stumbles into an awkward little hello like he can't believe he's being put on the spot. The Vice Principal totally flips out, screaming that she can't possibly be lying. There's no way some filthy old man is a master blacksmith, and it absolutely guts Derek, leaving him crushed. Bayer is boiling with rage that Derek actually had the nerve to mouth off to him, so the moment they get back, he starts plotting private lessons for Izu, punishment for bringing the guy around. Izu refuses to fold, straight up telling the Vice Principal to take his words back. Then Milital jumps in, promising she'll personally vouch for Derek's skills. The moment the second Milital speaks, Bayer's whole vibe snaps. He turns into a full-on creep, gushes that she's ravishing, and claims he's honored just to hear her voice. Derek just stands there, eyes locked on the chaos, smirking as he realizes how pathetic that old man is acting. Suddenly, a voice slices through the chaos and screams Derek's name. And boom, Sinyan shows up, screaming into his phone that he's following the instructions, but the tool keeps breaking on him, again and again. The second Derek hears the name, it clicks. He knows exactly who it is, while everyone else just stands there and watches the scene play out. Sinyan keeps blabbering apologies into the receiver, admitting he can't stop smashing his own equipment no matter what he tries. Bayer spots him instantly, and a shady smirk crawls across his face. Before he could point Sinyan out and shout him over, Sinyan spun around instantly, already puzzled about what that guy wanted from him. Bayer starts fawning over Sinyan, blurting that the guy's got insane talent. And then he snaps that it's a total travesty for him to be trapped in a dump like this, setting everything in motion for Derek, and the rest of the crew just froze in place, staring with empty faces, like they couldn't process what they were seeing. And then Bayer leans in and asks Sinyan what it'd be like to work under him, and before Sinyan can even blink, Bayer offers him a job on the spot as a special instructor. Sinyan can barely wrap his mind around it, like, "Wait, you mean me?" And the word asterisk special asterisk keeps slamming into his thoughts until he snaps completely, flings his hands in the air, and screams that he's a natural-born genius for real. Bayer decides they're blasting out right now to report back to the academy, and Izu scrambles to make him pause, only for Bayer to already be gone, moving like he's got no time to waste. He shoots Izu a seriously creepy stare and tells her that the moment they're back, she better march straight into his office. Sinyan can't hold it in. He starts bragging at Derek, telling him to quit right now because there's no way their skill levels are even in the same league. And he tells Derek, "Spend the rest of your life bowing to me, act like you've finally realized I truly won." Derek just stands there, completely wrecked by the whole mess, like his brain can't even find words for how insanely stupid this is. Izu, Milital, and Senji just stood there frozen solid, their faces stuck in pure shock from what they'd just seen, like their brains refused to even start processing it. How it all spiraled into this mess. Later, they circle back to the Army HQ, ready to. They finally crash for a breather, and Izu grins as he tells everyone, "You all killed it today," right as they sit down with tea making. Can you believe it? The academy actually has Bayer as vice principal. Like, seriously, that's insane. Militail just nods and says handling someone like him is a whole different level. It pretty much knocks the wind out of her. Then Izu steps in, waves it off like it's nothing, and she still feels compelled to apologize for every bit of trouble. Derek says this whole disturbance is really just her getting a massive promotion, head instructor, while Militail chimes in that she's only relieved Izu is finally getting the credit. But then Izu blurts, She shrugs it off with a bright smile and tells Derek that every win she's ever earned comes straight from the staff he forged for her, because it's the reason her story even started, and she's only getting to the heart of it. That hits Derek like a lightning bolt. He freezes mid-thought, chills crawling up his spine because those exact words feel painfully familiar, and then Izu snatches his attention and demands he take a quick look. Then she yanks the weapon out on the spot, and the truth behind it comes into full view. He wields the great mega staff, Duand, an S-rank holy weapon that looks so brutally powerful it's almost unreal. Derek gapes at the staff in his hand, totally lost, like, I've never seen this weapon before, and Izu tells him it's not magic at all, it's the toy staff I made for you ages ago. And she swears it somehow grew into what you're seeing right now, which Derek gets completely thrown off. He can't stop asking himself why every weapon he crafts keeps morphing into something wilder than the last. But he cuts the chatter and demands to know what she wants to talk about, and Izu jumps in, spilling everything that's been happening at the academy, saying that they're locked in right now, digging hard into the holy attribute, because Derek is the one who forged that staff. She asks if he'll share his pro opinion on the whole mess, and Derek doesn't even blink, and tells her he'll gladly step in and help, which makes Izu's face light up as she rushes out a thank you. Right then, Militail. She finally speaks up, saying she's been getting genuinely hooked on the holy attribute too lately. Right now, she has 0 missions to juggle, so she asks if she can tag along and just watch, and Izu agrees, pushing them to sprint back to the academy right away. So Derek tells them to hold up for a sec while he snatches his hammer. Izu yanks the saint into action, and the moment the teleport hits, all 3 of them get swallowed by blazing light as they rip through space and vanish. They tear out of there and pop up right in front of a massive estate, the exact moment that tells everyone, we're here. Militail can't stop staring at how gorgeous the grounds look, while Derek just stands there, soaking it all in like it's pure magic. Izu officially ushers them into Glossom Magic Academy, an absolute palace of a place, fountains blasting like it's stealing the spotlight. Derek clamps his massive hammer to his side as they start pushing inside. But Izu slams the brakes for a second and tells him, hold up, first we pay our respects to the headmaster. They rush into a swanky office, and the moment they step inside, a woman behind a giant desk greets them with a warm smile. She locks eyes with them and declares, I'm Elena Grossa, the headmaster of the entire academy. Military greets her and says, it's been ages, and Elena nods along, admitting they haven't seen each other in way too long. Derek introduces himself as Durate, and the second he says it's a pleasure to meet her, something clicks, like he's realizing they might have bumped into each other before. Elena snaps her gaze at the group and confirms Derek is the one who forged that holy attribute weapon. Then she wastes no time, she goes straight for the jugular, begging him to help with the academy's research into that power. Izu bursts in and reveals the headmaster isn't just some official, she's the queen's younger sister, and everything changes from here, and then it all clicks for Derek. His eyes widen as he finally realizes just how brutally high the stakes really are. Elena flashes a smile, keeps it real, and tells everyone, I'm kind to people who crush their jobs. But if you're slacking, she's got 0 patience, and she's demanding nothing but big results, so she expects it. Leaving Derek rattled as they head out, but they don't even get a few steps before someone's yelling for Izu. It's Vice Principal Bayer, and he's completely snapping, screaming at Izu because she didn't spot him first, while he rants that she dragged Derek along. Bayer storms into his space, shouting about why someone like him, just a low-level normie, should even be allowed on the grounds, and the non-stop screaming hits so hard that Derek clamps his hands on his head, already feeling that brutal headache creeping in. Then it turns physical, bam, a hand lunges out and clamps down on someone's arm. Derek peeks up and freezes, there's Izu, pure terror on her face. Then someone screams her name and everything hits at once. Turns out Bayer yanked her by the arm and hauled her off the ground, even while she's begging him to let go. He shoved way too close to her face, got painfully creepy, and grilled her about whether she was really daring to defy her own vice principal. But Izu fires back that his job title ties his hands, and right then Derek lunges in and grabs the guy. Bayer totally snaps, screaming that he's the living embodiment of every bit of academy wisdom, then snarling at her that she should be ashamed. Derek wrenches the guy's arm with brutal force, snarling that he's finally going to stop messing with Izu. Then Bayer caves, begs, and pleads to be released. Derek lunges to say something else, but Bayer is already sprinting for his life, convinced he has to get out of there right now. That whole mess drains Derek to the bone. He just stands there, clutching his hammer, completely wiped out. As he bursts through the doors, Bayer shouts over his shoulder that his running away is actually the best advice around he's giving. Breaking free from the group, he finally pushed through the gates and escaped the total weirdo. Milital leans in and asks Izu if she's okay after that whole mess, while Derek presses her about whether she's told any of this to the headmaster yet. Derek tells her to speak up the moment she needs help. Milital vows they'll have her covered, and Izu quietly thanks them with a grateful nod. She starts to speak, then slaps on a bright smile and tells them she's doing just fine, though it's obvious even while she looks away with that sorrowful face, she admits the truth. She's gotten so used to people treating her like this that it's basically all she knows. Derek and Milital were left frozen in dead silence, and you could tell she was carrying one rough deal. Izu suddenly slams her hands together to snap herself out of it, shouting that it's time to move. Then she tells Derek, "I'm about to introduce you to every single student as Lord Delete." She's suddenly glowing with excitement, saying the whole academy has been counting down to meet him, and then. So she charges toward the auditorium, and Milital tells them to get moving. We should go. Derek flexes his wild collection of legendary weapons, magic swords, and even his monstrous custom hammer. Inside the massive auditorium, Izu strides onto the stage and fires up the crowd, revealing she's got someone special she can't wait to introduce. She shocks the students by announcing that the man beside her is the very person who crafted her magic wand, making the. As Izu introduces him as Master Derek, the whole room starts whispering, and he answers with the most awkward, nervous hello you've ever heard. But the students don't buy it for a second. They hiss in whispers that he's nothing but some old dude who looks like he's got zero importance. Even Derek can't help but think they've got a point about how totally undignified he looks. Izu just keeps pushing forward and straight up tells everyone he's forged tons of holy weapons, including the massive hammer he hauls around. And she swears he even forged the very sword used by Milital, the army's commander, who steps up right then. She yanked her blade free, flashing it across the room to show off its flawless craftsmanship as the metal gleamed for everyone to see. The students snap into pure disbelief, staring at the weapon in total shock because they can't fathom how insanely high quality it is, and Milital marched off, smirking to herself, absolutely loving the reaction she just pulled from everyone. The students start shouting at Izu, begging to watch Derek forge a real weapon, because seeing it with their own eyes is the only way those wild, holy weapon stories finally feel believable. And Izu whirls around, locks eyes with them, and admits their request actually makes total sense. She whips around to Derek and asks if he's in, telling him they already own the smithy and the materials are set and ready. Then Derek just grins and says it's totally no big deal. So since they're stuck in a magic academy, he decides, why not try forging his own staff and see what happens? The entire class erupts in cheers, totally losing it, because a real master blacksmith is about to forge his magic right in front of them. Meanwhile, the vibe at the vice principal's office is totally dead, way less hype where Bayer is totally losing it, stomping around like a thunderstorm, snapping at Derek and blasting everyone with the same painful line. He swears he hates violence, then screams that they're all cowards. While he dramatically thrusts his arm up, shouting about how painfully red and sore it is from their earlier clash. He doesn't even pause, he just keeps ranting about how Izu had the nerve to refuse his invitation, and now he's straight up losing it in front of some suited guy. Who's so over it all just stares and asks, so what am I even supposed to do about this? Bayer stands in the middle of the office, frozen in total shock, one hand gripping his face like he just saw a ghost, standing there as the tall suit guy tells him to calm down and do nothing for now, and Bayer clears his throat like he's totally fine, then lets out a little grunt to save face after the freakout. He struts in like he owns the whole joint, orders up fresh clothes on the spot, and makes sure Bayer gets the message, only high-end brands on him. Bayer's dripping sweat as he glares at this guy, thinking, *, do I really have to deal with this attitude? The guy shoots back, asking what Bayer's problem is and where he's supposed to sleep, and that's when Bayer tells him, "Don't worry, I'll get your clothes," then adds, "and you'll stay in the special guest suite at the academy dorms." He's absolutely thrilled, gushing that this is the kind of top-tier treatment a guy like him truly deserves. He says he'll miss the stables a bit, and that totally throws Bayer off, because there's a clear memory of the guy napping in the hay with horses. But he won't shut up. He keeps bragging that his circle of powerful friends is growing bigger by the day. Bayer flashes a smug grin and tells him he's lucky he even got the chance to meet someone as important as him. The two of them break into laughter like they've been best friends forever, and it finally looks like Bayer has shaken off that earlier meltdown and found his good mood again. The agent stood there holding her ground, and when the guys barged in shouting at the tall suit guy, they told him she'd been expecting him all along. Bayer unveils her as his personal secretary, and the tall suit guy instantly fixates on her, blabbering nonstop about how stunning she is while Bayer clung to the real reason he hired an outsider woman all to himself, because the academy would have panicked the moment they found out. Suit guy starts planting kisses on Bayer's pride, swearing the whole world is blind for not seeing just how amazing he is. Agent just stood there, eyes flat and expression frozen, and you could tell she wasn't buying a single word of the nonsense they were throwing at her. Bayer devours every bite, cheeks blazing, and blurts out that his agent is the only one who truly gets what he's worth. He gets way too hyped and yanks her toward the bed, blurting that she's his ideal woman, until she shuts him down fast, telling him to wait, and jabs him right on the nose, grinning that he can have her after the job's done, because the longer he waits, the sweeter that payoff hits. Bayer's totally hooked by it, shuts out the distractions, and puts the job first, finally thrilled they're on the same page. Agent snaps back into full serious mode and drops one final detail they must crack before their plans can move. Agent makes it crystal clear this plan isn't just some quick hit. She's coming for Derek next, and she wants him gone for good. Bayer's completely in, flashing that giant creepy grin, while the tall suit guy just stands there like he's seconds away from a full-on heart attack. Agent brings up how Derek humiliated her buyer, and it takes her right back to the academy days when he made everything look way too easy, like he was just doing his thing. Everyone stared as he worked, but to her, what he was doing felt like a huge insult she couldn't let slide, and he's made up his mind. The only way to fix this is to pay with his life, while Derek stays completely clueless. There's a target on his back. Bayer's eyes light up, he loves it, and he bursts into cheering, urging her to get everything ready for their move right now. The agent shoots back that she's already one step ahead, and then offers to show him the setup right now, catching him completely off guard for once. Bayer started trembling with pure excitement, whispering through his breath that the moment he'd been waiting for was finally here, to grab what he wanted. Agent just stands there, eyes dead serious, like she's hiding a plan so much darker than she'll ever admit. They rush down into the basement, and the suit guy's eyes go wide as he stares at just how huge the room is, totally missing the magic circle sitting on the table, waiting right for them. Agent leans in and tells Bayer that the day he finally takes the throne is just around the corner. Then Bayer smiles and fires back that soon she'll be queen too, and somehow she sounds just as certain. The suit guy scans the whole room, realizing the place is massive, but the interior design is a total eyesore. Bayer's eyes blaze with intensity as he leans in and whispers, "I'm doing it," then says he's going to seize control of this entire country. He starts going off, saying he's way too big for his job and insisting he's not the kind of guy who could ever be happy settling for life as a vice principal. His plan is to tug the strings at the Magic Academy and ignite a coup, because once the nation crumbles, he'll swoop in and claim the throne, like it was always his. He put him in charge of everything, then grinned, because this academy is packed with talent he can shuffle around like pawns, and that grin says it all. His plan is flawless. Agent snaps him over and tells him she's finally got the exact item they've been hunting for. Right in front of them floated the Aranka's Darkness Power Stone. This top-tier, dark-as-night relic burned with strange energy, glowing like it was about to unleash something terrifying. Bayer is completely consumed by it. He raves that it's a beautiful jewel, and insists this dark power is the one thing they truly need to make the plan finally work. He watches her step past the stones, and it hits him hard. This is the second reason he hired Agent. With access like this, he can get items just like it. Bayer locks his gaze on the stone, clueless about how Agent even got her hands on it, but the truth hits him. she's basically his lifesaver for getting it back. Agent tells Bayer to smash the jewel and steal that dark power for himself, but Bayer just freezes there, fighting the thoughts that creep in. He's like, wait, what am I even doing? He better play it safe, so he strides onto the platform, ready for anything to go wrong. While shouting at Sinyan to step up and use his power to smash that jewel, he shows zero hesitation. Sinyan's like, I'm on it, I've got this. Sinyan snatches the dark stone and strains with every ounce of strength, trying to crush it with his bare hands. Bayer watches him struggle, smirks to himself, and thinks, what a fool. He thinks plain brute strength will cut it, and then just like that, the stone starts to split, cracks spidering out as shards of the dark jewel burst and fly everywhere when it finally shatters. Sinyan shouts that he finally pulled it off, right as a massive cloud of dark energy starts blasting out and it wraps around him like a living shadow. He shouts that the power has to surge into his body while Bayer stares on, watching the dark energy get sucked in. Energy whips around like a storm and Sinyan's face tightens, like he can feel everything slipping right out of the plan. Bayer just stands there blazing as he drinks in the energy, grinning like it's the greatest thing ever. Man, this power feels amazing. Agent grins and tells Mr. Bayer that the display is absolutely magnificent. The suited guy just stands there completely clueless, like he's watching the world glitch in real time, while someone says it's probably best to leave that idiot alone. Bayer starts chanting at the dark, begging it to take full control of everything. Then he screams, "Dark, manipulate," to snap the spell into action. Dark energy ripped through the air, and sharp black shards exploded up from the floor like they had been waiting to strike. Derek shows the academy students the staff he just finished crafting. Milital and Izu stare at him, both of them completely blown away. The kids swarm around Derek, buzzing with pure excitement to finally lay eyes on his masterpiece. One student blurts out which elements match the holy attribute best, and after a quick beat of thought, Derek drops the answer: fire and lightning. And he makes it sound super simple. Non-attribute is basically a no-brainer, so anyone can tackle it with way less stress. Derek wraps up his lesson, asks the kids if they've got any last questions, then a weird noise hits and it snaps him right out of it. He whips around, eyes wide with pure shock, because one of the students suddenly collapses and Derek bolts over, yelling, "Hey, are you okay?" But the kid can barely squeeze out a word before a fresh wave of pain makes him groan. Derek grips the kid tight and asks where it hurts, but the boy suddenly goes stone-cold silent, and then Derek catches sight of it and screams as a hulking black shadow climbs up behind the kid like a wall, crashing into view. The whole room erupts into panic. Milital yells for a doctor and Izu screams, "Derek, be careful." A creepy black mist starts creeping across the floor and someone blurts, "What the hell is this?" While, as Izu finally clicks what's going on, she jolts everyone and shouts that the air is thick with dark magic, so heavy she can practically feel it. The shadows on the ground suddenly wriggle to life, stretching out like living chains and trapping everyone right where they stand. Derek and the crew stopped dead in the center of the room, and when they looked around, they realized they were boxed in, surrounded by that dark energy with nowhere to run. The students are wiped out completely, standing there in place, their eyes turned blank and dead, like the life got sucked right out of them. As Derek grinds his teeth, total stress hits him hard while he tries to wrap his head around just how insanely fast everything spiraled. Izu shoots to the front of the group and screams for Derek and Milital to stay right by her. She shouts for her Saintcha barrier, and boom, an enormous dome of light slams into place, shielding them from the choking fog. Derek blurts out his thanks to Izu for saving him, while Milital stares at the kids and demands, "What in the world is happening to you?" Izu spots the wandering students and snaps that dark magic has fully hijacked their minds. She says the only reason the three of them are still standing is that their weapons are packed with holy power. Derek nods and admits light and dark are absolute opposites, while Milital snaps to the truth that she can't just start smashing the kids without thinking first. Milital snaps at Derek that he has to hang back, but Izu fires back that they're actually about to use Milital's power for this. Izu yanks a charm from her belt, eyes locked in, ready to unleash her next move. Just like that, the Saint's Spirit clone spell hits, and glowing copies of Milital start popping up everywhere. Derek just stands there, frozen in pure shock, because how on earth are there suddenly so many militants running wild everywhere now? Izu tells everyone the clones can stall the students, so while they're trapped, they need to sprint after the wizard masterminding the mind control. She fires off her magic to track them down, but a nasty block shuts her detection down, and she gets absolutely nothing back. Outside, a colossal magic barrier snaps into place across the whole academy, sealing every door and cutting them off from the outside world. Izu stares at her staff in silence, her face falling hard, because she can't get a single lock on the enemy. Milital blurts out, "So what now?" And when Izu's search crashes again, Derek clenches his jaw and says they'll have to hunt the whole place on foot. The three of them burst into a sprint down the hallway, kicking off their search of the school right away. Izu blurts out an apology for not being stronger, but Derek shuts her down. None of this is her fault, right as Milital spots a stranger up ahead. They spot a guy posted by the door, clutching a plate of food, and Milital blurts out that it might actually be Shinyan. The guy's just humming like everything's fine, and Derek clocks it instantly. No black mist means no mind control. Milital leans in like, "What's going on?" While Izu swears he's just delivering food, maybe for that dark magic guy Derek warned about. As they watch, a massive black void rips open out of nowhere right in the hallway wall, just like that, cutting their world in half. Milital blurts out in shock as the guide vanishes on the spot, straight into the stone. That dark portal slams shut in an instant, and the hallway looks totally untouched, like nothing ever dared to happen. Derek won't just stand around, he tells the girls to go check that spot up close. He demands to know what's going on, and Milital says it just feels like a normal wall. Then Izu steps in and tells them to back off and leave it to her. Izu slams her palm to the stone and shouts, "Saintia reveal," and a giant magic circle ignites, blazing bright against the ground with a deafening. Derek Milital only stood there and watched, ready to see if she could really crack the way inside. Suddenly that dark entrance tears open again and Izu bursts out in joy like, "Yes, it finally opened for us." Derek glances at Izu and laughs, saying this is exactly how a head instructor from the academy would act. Right on the money. Izu charges up the stairs, barking that the main hideout is right around the corner. No doubts, no hesitation. Inside the room, Vice Principal Bear shovels meat into his mouth and chews like he's daring the whole world to stop him. He tells the suit guy that steak was a nice touch, but the guy shrugs and says to Bear, "You're the one paying, deal with it." Their lunch gets ripped away the second a booming voice yells at them to shut it down like, "Right." It slams both of them to a halt and they whip around like, "Who's the one wrecking this party?" Izu steps up fast, shouting into the shadows about the dark magic she can feel, and demands that Bear tell her, "Are you the one controlling the students?" Milital wastes zero time, grabbing Bear's attention and demanding he let those kids go right this second. Bear blasts the guy as a total fool for missing the intruders, while the suit guy loses it and yells at him to shut up, after he went through all the trouble to bring food. Bear snaps, then launches a dark arrow spell straight at the suit guy, blasting him for being so loud and unbearable. The suit guy stares, utterly stunned. He can't wrap his head around how everything went south so fast, and then, before he even gets his first step in, Milital slams him with one brutal hit and sends him crashing through the doorway. He screams as he slams into the wall, and while he lies there on the floor, fully knocked out, done for. Bear snaps at the group that they've already pushed way too far, but Izu refuses to back down and tells him, "You've got nowhere left to run." As the militia steps in and tightens the pressure, Bear finally cracks, admitting his crimes and just surrendering, but Bear snaps back, yelling that he's not taking this and that he's going to take over the entire country himself. Then he starts gathering this nasty dark energy in his own hand, staring absolutely unhinged as he rips out a command, his dark golems finally lurch into motion. Huge rocks start screeching and sliding, then they slam together across the floor, and then three giant stone monsters burst up from the ground, looming over every single person, so huge Izu can barely process it, while Bear just keeps bragging that they're specially made and getting them down won't be easy. Bear stands right in front of his giant stone golems and starts spouting creepy demands, taunting them that if they lose, they'll have to show up in his room for a total freak show humiliation. Even though Izu doesn't look bothered for a second, she slips out her blade and tells him, dead calm, that it's game over, because her sword can cut through absolutely anything. She blitzes forward like a streak of purple lightning, shouting her technique, and instantly the golems tear apart into a million glittering pieces. Those giant stone monsters just collapse into harmless rocks, raining down across the floor, yet the battle's far from finished. Derek grips his hammer, lets out a loud battle cry, and Izu interrupts, telling him it's time to unleash that special move of his. But right when they think they've won, dark, weird smoke starts gushing out of the cracked stones on the ground. Bear erupted into that nasty laugh of his, bragging that he'd warned everyone he wouldn't get taken down that easily. He brags that dark magic has supercharged him, and then bam, an entire army of golems erupts from behind him, turning all those earlier attacks into absolute trash. Milital and the others look absolutely wrecked right now. Isu yells that the trouble isn't just growing, it's literally multiplying, and it's turning into a full-on nightmare they can't keep up with. Derek cranes his neck at the fresh wave of monsters, and as something feels asterisk off, he opens his mouth to say it. Derek spots something familiar in the golem's face. Yep, that same creepy black light they saw when they battled the Iron Bear, and he snaps at Izu and Milital, yelling for them to focus, because if he doesn't, he's about to lose them right in the moment he's saying it. He finally cracks the code for the win, then he erupts, yelling that every single golem's true weak spot is staring straight back at them in the eyes. Bayer looks wrecked now that his secrets are out, sweating bullets, clicking like he's about to snap, but Izu and Milital don't hesitate for a heartbeat. They both yell Roger and launch into full-speed sprints straight at the monsters while Bayer snaps completely in the back, roaring at his golems to surge in and slaughter everyone right now. Milital rockets into the sky, yells the name of her god thrust, then slams back down on them like a falling meteor. And she fires off a brutal combo, smashing straight through the golem's thick stone armor. On the other side, Izu locks in her stance and starts charging her Saintcha move, laser-focused like nothing in the world can touch her as she unleashes a lance strike that slices straight through the golems, smashing the exact weak spots Derek had pinpointed. Derek's not letting those girls steal all the glory. He shouts that he's jumping into the fight too, as the golem's eye flares with that eerie glow right before. Derek rockets up into the sky, screaming as he lines up the drop, hammer ready to fall and watching the moment explode. And he hurls the massive tool down with everything he's got, smashing into the target so brutally that the impact was so brutal, it felt like the air itself was splitting apart on contact. And just like that, the golems crumble into nothing, just a pile of useless rocks dumped in the dirt. Milital, Derek, and Izu tower over the wrecked like a total powerhouse squad, giving you that this is about to go down feeling. Which makes Bayer completely lose it. He's trembling like a leaf, shaking so hard he can barely scrape out a single word. Milital doesn't give him an inch. She locks eyes with him, declares it's over. And Derek goes straight to the vice principal and basically tells him, "Your best move is to throw in the towel right now." Milital locks eyes with him and flat out declares that his stupid plan to seize the country is officially dead. Bayer snaps completely, stammering that it's all lies, all while trying to flex his vice principal title like it means something, and he just won't stop trembling, muttering that every ounce of hard work he poured in is getting destroyed by a bunch of total fools. He refuses to quit. He slips into the shadows and starts muttering, swearing he'll never accept this, and Derek, Milital, and Izu all go stone still, faces locked in pure shock at what's unfolding right in front of them, because Bayer is straight up transforming, giant wings unfurl, a horn snaps out of his head, and he just stands there like the biggest freak you've ever seen. He locks eyes on his own claws, whispers that it's unreal, and feels raw, insane power surge through his body like it's alive. The whole group can't wrap their heads around it, and then somebody snaps, "What the hell is going on?" As Izu finally realizes the nightmare is real, she blurts out that the vice principal has been completely devoured by dark magic. He's transforming into a full-on half-demon on the spot, cackling like he owns the world and bragging that nobody can stop him now. Derek and the girls just freeze, totally stunned, at the freakish monster Bayer has turned into He suddenly starts floating in the air, crowing that he's about to rule the country, then flips gears fast and declares he's taking over the entire world. Izu snaps back to reality first, then screams at Derek and Milital to keep their guard up because the danger just exploded 10 times worse. Bayer roars for the king as a towering pillar of dark energy blasts from him, and Milital refuses to stand there and do nothing. She lunges forward and slams her blade into the demon's power, erupting in a massive burst of sparks as the shockwave rips through the air while Derek, Izu, caught in the chaos, tries to keep up as the fight rips forward at lightning speed. Milital keeps her head down, stares forward and whispers Godspeed, bracing herself to end this. She yanks off a wild swallow reversal, smacking Bayer with a flurry of hits before he even gets the chance to react, and that's the moment it all goes nuts. Izu spots her opening, snaps her staff up, and unleashes a brutal blast of light magic to end it. Then she unleashes a Saintcha strike, boom. A massive glowing fist crashes into the demon and whips him flying through the air. Bayer eats a brutal punch to the face, coughing up a mouthful of spit while the impact rattles his whole head. The blast hits him like a cannon and he gets launched across the room like a ragdoll, and then he smashes into the stone wall, crumples to the floor, and a web of cracks blooms across the masonry behind him. Derek, Milital, and Izu just froze in place, gaping in total shock as the fight spiraled into something totally unexpected. But the shock doesn't stop there. Bayer snarls through it and hauls himself back up like that hit barely even landed. He tilts his head up with a nasty grin, flashing like, "Yeah, I'm still got fight left in me." Izu totally spirals and demands why holy attacks won't hit that demon, but Bayer shrugs it off and says it's actually pretty straightforward. He starts bragging that his dark magic is way stronger than any holy weapon they've got. Then boom, right as he's talking, out of nowhere he slams to a stop mid-sentence, groaning hard, as a strange crackling burst of energy snaps through the air. Bayer howls at the top of his lungs when a brutal dark spike drops out of nowhere and slams him into the ground. Izu blurts out that a second horn is sprouting on his left side, and he panics, because if this keeps going, there's no way he's ever getting back to being human. She's totally freaking out, screaming that she can't even begin to picture the disaster that'll hit if he goes full demon. Milital snaps that they've got to stop this before the transformation spirals any farther, yet Izu fires back that if they keep going like this, they might not even manage to keep him alive. Derek just freezes, eyes locked on the scene, because right now this isn't some maybe, it's life or death. He admits he doesn't even like Bayer, knows messing with people like this is wrong, yet the idea of Bayer turning into a monster still makes his stomach twist. At the end of the day, Derek reminds himself he's still a person, not a lost cause, and maybe, just maybe, one day he'll flip his whole life around. So Derek doesn't just try to take him down, he decides he wants more than a simple defeat. He whips his head toward Milital and tells her, no sugarcoating, that they're not just here to take him on, she's about to help them save Vice Principal Bayer. Milital and Izu stare at him, utterly stunned by what he just blurted out. Still, something tells me this is only the start. Milital just smirks and says, "Yeah, that's exactly how he is," and Izu immediately snaps, ready to rip the guy straight out of the demon's grip. The group finally clocks it. If they want Bayer back, they've gotta slam him with one knockout punch to break that demon transformation. But the vice principal is gone. He's out there shrieking at them to die, while someone yells for everybody to split up and scatter. Izu steps up, grabs her staff, and tells everyone, "I'll use my magic to pin him down so he can't move." Derek and Milital grab the signal and sprint straight at the monster while it's still distracted, praying the plan actually lands. Izuku's Saintia hits, glowing white chains snap around Bayer, yanking him into the air and trapping him tight as they burn with light. With the target locked in, Milital and Derek slide forward in total sync, unleashing their deadliest combined strike. Both of them jammed every ounce of strength into one final strike, screaming at the monster to take it now. Milital unleashes her catastrophic slash the moment Derek's heavy hammer crashes down on the demon, full force, no mercy. But then a creepy laugh crawls out of the smoke and Bayer's voice snaps that they've pushed way too close, way past the point of safety. Izu spots danger in the distance and unleashes a blood-curdling scream, yelling at everyone to get out of there right now. Bayer unleashes a brutal dark spike that tears through the air, so savage it snaps the glowing chains, pinning him like they're nothing, and it shoots forward, sending black energy lashes through the air like a storm, but Izu whips around and yells Saintia, and a blinding shield bursts up in the nick of time, saving Derek and Milital. Izu looks absolutely relieved, gripping her magic orb like it's her lifeline, and she blurts that she managed to throw the barrier up at the last second, saving them from Derek's about to get impaled, so he whips around, gasps that she just saved his life, and they both scramble to catch their breath for a beat. But the monster won't quit. Bayer's dark shape keeps floating above them, hovering like a demon, not a person anymore. Derek realizes his strikes aren't landing at all because the aura is so brutally thick, and then Izu cuts in, saying his magic has shifted from human to that to straight up demonic. She says this transformation makes him resistant to the holy power, his old deadliest weakness, so now he's basically left defenseless. And while Derek just stands there stunned, he mutters weakness to himself like the moment finally clicks and he's cracked the truth. He clamps down on his hammer handle even harder, convinced that he's finally got it, because it turns out he was so locked in on elemental types and magic logic that he totally missed the one real way to drop this guy. Derek digs in, clamps his hammer tight, and fires off to the others that finally he can spot every weakness. Not just in the magic, right down to the actual materials that shape the monster's body. He locks eyes with the floating demon and screams that the vice principal's real weakness is his heart, while Bayer just smirks at them, acting like he's untouchable and can't possibly have a single flaw. The monster floats over the group and roars that for someone like him, weakness just doesn't exist. Izu wastes zero time and slams a Saint's Sun pillar straight onto him, and the demon screams like, how are you this much trouble? Milital snaps into action next, shouting her blue heaven move as she charges in, and it all spirals into. She rams in a follow-up strike and calls Setsuna, who smashes the monster so hard he can barely hold it together, groaning in pain. The demon gets blasted backward, suspended midair, looking completely wrecked and rattled, and right then Milital whips his head back toward Derek and shouts for him to strike now. Izu screams at Derek to put the guy down for good, and just like that, Derek cranks his massive hammer back and hurls it forward, screaming the vice principal's name as he fights to snap him back into a human. The hammer slams in and a massive burst of light detonates across the whole room. Then, when the glare finally dies down, Derek stands there, gasping for breath, finally admitting they have to get everything back to normal. Milital and Izu snap up their hands to block their eyes from the swirling dust and debris, while as the smoke finally starts to thin out from the heart of the blast, they spot Bayer sprawled on the ground, completely wiped out, then realize the horns are gone and finally he's human again. Milital tells Derek she knew his strike would hit like a monster. Then Derek shrugs it off while Izu starts scanning the floor like something about to jump out, and as she keeps hunting, Milital yells her name and Derek cuts in, asking if she's searching for something specific. Right then, thud, a heavy boot slams onto the stone floor and everyone freezes on the spot. Derek drops to his knees, scanning the floor like a detective, muttering that it feels like he just stepped on something. He snatches a tiny object, quizzes what it is, and zapping, it's Izu who locks eyes with it instantly. Izu barrels in and begs Derek to let her look at it, and his whole body jerks back from the sheer force of her energy. When she raises the shard in her hand, her eyes widen. It's a broken piece of a dark attribute jewel, and she suddenly understands. Milital blurts out why something like that would show up here, and Izu snaps back that it's the exact reason the vice principal became a demon. They snap their eyes to the unconscious Bayer, because they're sure he's the one who knows exactly where that jewel came from. Milital decides the smartest play is to blast magic straight through his memories, hunting for the truth, then it goes out. Outside the building, someone's already sprinting for the exit, like they're about to get caught any second. The agent strides into the trees, muttering curses at Derek under her breath as she disappears from sight. She's absolutely livid, her perfect plans are crumbling, and Derek keeps crashing into her path at every single turn. The agent strides through the woods by herself, and lately it feels like every single plan she's made is crumbling in her hands. She realizes right then no special status is going to save her this time, because the master plan just slammed into a brutal wall. Looking utterly wiped out, she can't stop wondering if death is the only thing waiting for her at the end of this nightmare. She pushes forward, chanting to herself that she has to reach her group first. Then she suddenly freezes in her. Something hits her off guard, and when she snaps her head back, pure shock floods her face because, as Izu rockets out of the trees, she slams down right in front of her, cutting off every single escape route. The agent locks eyes with her, and the second she realizes the girl has found her, she knows this mess is far uglier than she ever imagined. She leans in and demands what kind of business Izu could possibly have with her, and Izu just shrugs that they already dug through Bayer's memories. So Izu holds up the dark fragment, points it at them, and declares, "We saw you hand that jewel to the vice principal, then you turned him into a demon." The agent just stares at the floor and calls out, then asks Bayer if he's positive his own mind isn't messing with him. The agent snaps to the truth. Izu knows her name, the jewel fragments, everything, and just like that, Izu admits she can't sweet-talk her way out of this one. She tries to play it cool, claiming she's in a rush and has to leave, only for Izu to shut it down instantly and tell her, point-blank, that she isn't going anywhere. Derek freezes in total shock, then someone yells his name as the wood's tension snaps toward a breaking point, and when the agent clenches her teeth, she pins every single disaster on Derek, everything that's gone wrong with her mission lately. She snaps at Izu to stop pretending, but the second Izu presses her for the real goal, the agent straight up decides talking is pointless. As Izu tries to explain why she's even there, the agent's hand slams toward his sword, like he's done talking and ready to cut it all short. She rockets forward in a flash, grabbing Izu's attention, and hisses that with death looming, the fine details don't even matter anymore. Derek's throat rips with a scream. He yells Izu's name, panicking because someone's about to strike her down before she can even react. The agent smirks, already convinced she's got this in the bag, because the second those mages try to chant, she knows they're totally helpless. But Izu shouts her Saint Shalak spell, and before that agent even gets the words out, she's instantly hogtied in glowing ropes. The agent freezes in pure shock, demanding if Izu really just pulled off chantless magic. Then Izu stays cool and calmly tells him that it's the staff Derek crafted for her that lets her cast in total silence. And the agent clenched her teeth and snapped that it wasn't over, jaw tight, while she muttered Derek's name under her breath. Izu leans over her and snaps that she should just quit already, because it's obvious she's already lost this fight. The agent finally clicks she's right, because she can't move a single inch to snatch her hidden knife, so she finally snaps to the truth that she really did get beaten by some nobody, while Izu just nods along, flat out admitting it's over. But then the agent blurts out the one deadly reason she truly lost, and Izu's like, "Wait, what are you saying?" She finally confesses that her worst mistake was trusting the wrong people. She never could read character. She never once saw it coming that her boss, Bayer, would be this wildly incompetent at his own job. But here's the catch, there's still something that could mess it all up. With a creepy grin curling across her face, she tells them the gathering of reason is eternal. No one ever can destroy them. Dared and Izu just froze on the spot, totally blindsided. None of them thought it was going to spiral like this, and a massive celebration erupts through the forest, blasting the air with cheers and making birds explode into the sky as the news races ahead. He sprinted all the way to the royal palace, where the sun blazed over towering castle spires. Outside the palace walls, a massive crowd packed shoulder to shoulder, all staring up at the balcony, screaming their lungs out like they're trying to shake the sky. Up on that balcony, Queen Serenade stands shoulder to shoulder with Milital and the whole crew, staring straight at Derek as she declares, "Lord Durate." She beams a huge, real smile at him, thanking him from the bottom of her heart for saving the academy from all that dark evil. But she's not finished. She leans in and says he's not just someone who can forge holy weapons, he can wield them too. As the whole classroom erupts in clapping and cheers, the queen leans in and tells him that his killer eye for enemy weak spots and the kind of character he's got are downright incredible. Derek's cheeks go warm under all that praise, but the queen shuts down his bashfulness fast. He's a blacksmith like nobody else in this entire era. Derek grins right back and tells the queen he's not even pretending. He's genuinely thrilled she's saying all those kind words. Elena Grossa goes public and declares Derek the new special instructor at Glossa Academy of Magic. Derek bows to the headmaster, grinning as he says he's going to be a blacksmith, and right now, he's prouder than ever. Milital beams with a huge smile and goes, "I'm just thrilled you're finally getting the credit you've earned." Izu says, "Yeah, my life's about to get way busier." So he tells the both of them not to let them forget to thank them for the support. Staring out at that view, Derek finally admits the brutal truth. He's only standing here today because everyone who helped him, and that's where the story turns. But Milital makes it clear he wants them thanking him. Derek tries to play it cool, then admits it feels like a heavy burden. Before anyone can breathe, the queen cuts in out of nowhere. Queen Serenade leans in and tells him she wants to thank him one last time, personally. And when a servant steps out with a present, she tells Derek to take it. This special gift is their way of saying thank you. She shoots her hand skyward, stretching it high into the air, calling out Serena Glossa's name to honor Durate, the man who stepped in and saved their entire country. The queen steps up and declares she's handing him the Hammer of Glossa, an insane royal honor that marks him as the officially best blacksmith in the entire kingdom. And just as they step out onto the balcony, the entire crowd below erupts like they've been waiting for this moment. Derek lifts the brand new hammer, and the silver metal flashes and sparkles under the blazing sun. The whole crowd of kids erupts, shouting his name and thanking him for stepping in and defending their country. One kid shouts that he wants to grow up just like him, and the other fires back that he's basically a hero for every middle-aged guy on the planet. Later, the queen leans in and tells Derek there's a massive banquet waiting for him at the palace, and he instantly says he'd be honored to come. Melina Grosso strides up to the queen as everyone else crowds back and watches from the sidelines, and the queen locks eyes with Elena and tells her, straight up, that everything ahead depends on her. Now it's time to settle the score. These guys who started all this mess are gonna pay. Sinyin and Bayer are on the ground, bodies trembling, while the queen looms over them with a whip in hand, sending them straight to the dungeon. She finally halts the whip and snaps, "That's probably enough for now," and Bayer stays huddled on the floor, shaking with pure terror. Elena looms over the two failures and snaps her whip, warning them that since the queen is tied up, she's taking over their punishment. She stares down at them with raw disgust, and the thought hits hard: how humiliating it is that her own school could produce someone this awful. She doesn't pull any punches. She snarls that it's pathetic a massive fool actually clawed his way up through their ranks. Then she turns to Bayer and grills him about that secretary of his, again, and the little guy starts trembling like a leaf in the wind. Turns out the reports are in, and that woman isn't some nobody. She's a top-tier member of the Assembly of Reason. Bayer can barely even choke out the name. He keeps repeating it, and you can see his whole world crumbling as if it's already gone. Elena clicks with the truth, so that's why he had the jewel of darkness, and she swings it right back, insisting Ajin was the one who really threw the whole country into chaos. She kept talking, revealing that the woman wasn't just acting. She was setting up a demon invasion, and Bayer was nothing more than a pawn in the entire scheme. Because her crimes are utterly massive, Bayer realizes he's doomed and scrambles across the floor to get out. But Elena isn't finished. She snaps her gaze to Sinyin next, and he looks like he's watching his whole life play out in front of him. Elena snaps back at everyone and reminds them that shattering the legendary Amatsurugi always ends the same way, straight to a death sentence, so she can. She fires back at Bayer, blasting him for tossing the king's kindness aside just to cozy up to a bunch of shady buyers. She's done with him for good, makes it crystal clear he'll never get another shot to risk the magic school or the kingdom. But Sinyin won't fold. He jabs a finger in the air, screams that he's nothing but a victim, and insists the other guy set him up. Sweat pours off him as he scrambles for words, desperately trying to sweet-talk his way out of the mess he just caused. Elena doesn't buy a single excuse. She snarls, tightens her whip, and tells them both it's time for her to deliver their official punishment. She locks eyes with Bayer and tells him, flat out, he's headed straight for prison, and then she swivels her gaze to Sinyin and condemns him to rot for life in the underground mines, chained to hard labor. Reality finally hits them hard, because the lives they used to know are completely gone, over for good. Elena snaps at them to get back on their feet, and while they're down on their knees begging for literally anything else as punishment, the guards grab them and start hauling them away. Sinyin starts to lose it as the guards yank him away, sobbing, begging that he'll never do it again and choking out how truly sorry he is. Then the sentence cuts off, like his courage just breaks. But Elena doesn't budge. She shuts him down fast, telling him that if he wants an apology now, he never should have messed up in the first place. She's done with him for good. Then she tells him to rot in a cell for the rest of his life, thinking about every single thing he did. Bayer is losing it, screaming for the headmaster, demanding to know why he's not being treated like he's innocent, despite the... So Elena makes it crystal clear there's zero way he's getting off easy. She snaps that he's going to learn blacksmithing materials the hard way. He pleads with the guards to hold up and hear him out, but they don't listen. They haul him down the stairs anyway, right into the next part of the story. A suffocating underground tunnel swallowed him in cramped darkness, tight enough to make every breath feel like a fight. Deep inside the caves, a crew of miners hammers away with pickaxes, dragging heavy rocks back and forth as the whole place thunders with work. And while one worker is actually having the time of his life cruising around in his cart, his partner is clearly on the edge, drowning in stress. Turns out Sinyin is right there with them, roped into hard labor and absolutely miserable as his new life drags him under. Down in the mines, things are spiraling fast. One worker starts yelling at a guy who's just standing there, and the argument explodes into a total disaster, spilling chaos everywhere. One of the friendly miners just grins and goes, "Don't worry," offering to lend him a hand with the work. The miner laughs, slaps Sinyin on the back, and calls him his precious friend. Then Sinyin snaps, yelling for him to stop because he's not having any of that. He's absolutely miserable, snapping that there isn't a single shred of beauty in a place like this. He screams about how getting stuck working in this filthy dump is a total nightmare. The other guys rush in and try to lift his spirits, begging him not to bottle everything up and to lean on them when anxiety hits. Everyone swarms around him, begging him to let them fix him, swearing that if he stays close, the wickedness in his heart will finally vanish. The lead miner flashes flashes a huge thumbs up at him, shooting Sinyan a promise that every single person here's got his back. Sinyan just stands there trembling with rage, struggling to push out a single word as his control slips, and then he just erupts, screaming for them to cut it out and stop grabbing him without permission. The miner keeps grinning, telling Sinyan not to stress, he's gonna help scrub that attitude right out of him. But Sinyan instantly snaps back that he hates people like him more than anything. As everything fades away, Sinyan can't stop asking himself one brutal question. How much longer is he trapped under this deadline? In the dark, he's completely cracking, scared to death that this could be the end, that it might turn into his life sentence for real. The story snaps into a dazzling, high society party where nobles mingle around towering, fancy decorated tables, soaking up the spectacle. Darrett's just standing there, soaking it all in, when someone yanks his name out of the air from right behind him. A young girl tells him she's going to bust her own tail just to catch up to his blacksmithing skills, and another kid chimes in that someday she'll cook with the tools he forged. Derek panics and blurts it off like, nah, I'm just some old guy, but the kids aren't buying it. They think his humble act is the coolest thing on earth. People fire off jokes saying he's basically a celebrity now, and Izu shoots back that she'll study her hardest so she can do right by the people he helped her become. Milital finally grabs Izu's attention, tells her to stay safe, and make sure she knows how thrilled he was to see her again. Izu flashes a warm smile and tells Milital she's just as happy to see her again, until that sweet moment gets ripped apart because Milital. As Milital starts giggling to herself, she daydreams about it. Finally, her teacher is all hers again. Except Izu catches everyone off guard and politely tells them she's not going anywhere. She's staying right by Derek's side for a while. Derek and Milital flat out lose control, staring at her like they've just seen the impossible. Izu calmly tells everyone the headmaster gave her time off, then lights up, because she's ready to spend every second of it with him. Milital plastered on a fake smile and chirped that she was happy to hear it, while Izu stared her down like a lock on a door, making it crystal clear she wasn't letting them be alone together. Derek stuck right in the middle of all that chaos, his nerves shredding as literal sparks fly between them. Out of nowhere, a kid in the crowd goes wild, flailing his arms and screaming that the musketeers finally made it back. As soon as the news bursts through the room, the whole party yanks to a stop and everyone is left. Everybody started whispering in disbelief about how they crushed the Northern Stampede in only a month, mostly because their captain is so absurdly strong that it doesn't even feel like a fair fight. Milital brings up the musketeers and drops the bombshell. This isn't a past legend, it's a brand new special unit for the National Army. It's a squad that fights with guns instead of swords, and as they march down the street, people can't help but stop and stare, piling up around them. Derek can't stop thinking about how fast everything's changing lately, but Izu beats him to it. She points out the captain's right there and insists they go say hi. Bayonet hits a nerve in Derek. He screeches to a halt and digs for the exact place he's heard that name before. Out of nowhere, a voice screams for the Lord Commander, and Derek and Milital both jolt hard like they got yanked by the collar. Grosso's musketeer unit freezes in perfect formation, staring forward like a steel-silent weapon about to strike. With a huge grin blazing across her face, she strides right up and announces that they finally made it back from their mission. She snaps a salute to Milital and reports that the stampede terrorizing the Toyu grasslands is finally crushed, and you can see the pride in her eyes. Nobody, not a single civilian or soldier, got hurt through the entire thing. Derek gave her a quick nod, praised her work, and told her to get the paperwork on his desk before tomorrow morning. Bayonet stood there trembling like a leaf, eyes totally blank. Then Milital finally noticed and demanded what was going on with her. She snaps out of her daydream and bursts into a happy yell, calling for her papa and telling him, right to his face, just how much she missed him. Derek's face flushes crimson and he snaps, yelling at her to stop calling him that in front of everyone, but she's already latched onto him, yanking him around as he fights and yells at her to let go, while the others just stand there and stare at the whole mess. Once things finally quiet down, she blurts out that she never ever thought she'd bump into her dad here, in the royal capital of all places. She keeps pressing on, insisting he should have told her he was in town, and Derek can only manage a shaky, exhausted little laugh. Looking back on it all, she points out that landing the National Army's exclusive blacksmith gig is a massive leap, and he just shrugs and says it happened because of the people standing beside him. He insists this wasn't all his strength, and Bayonet bursts out laughing, calling it the classic humble dad attitude. Just then, a soldier marches up and shouts for the captain. Derek whips his head around, stunned like, who the heck is this new guy? So, Bayonet finally steps forward and introduces him to the rest of the musketeers, beaming as she proudly declares, "This is my dad, Darret." Bayonet barges into the squad, introduces herself and Darret, and drops the bombshell. Darret is her dad, and he's the blacksmith who forged her gun. She lunges out of nowhere, snatches a guy, yanks him forward, and the poor dude blares a startled yell as she launches into the praise. She hypes him up as the absolute rising star of the entire squad. She tells Darret to treat Luca, the vice captain, with respect. And then Luca starts panicking as he blurts that being called a rising star is just a little too much, while Darret offers his hand and introduces himself, and Luca smiles back, saying it's an absolute pleasure to finally meet him. Luca strides back into formation, locking in beside the other musketeers as they line up. Darret points out how many young kids are roaming around, and Bayonet snaps back that because guns are still brand new, they usually run solo. She admits it straight up, because of this new tech, the rest of the National Army mostly treats them like total rookies. Bayonet snaps that she has to step it up to become a real captain, but Darret shoots back that she's already busting her ass. And then a spark ignites in her eyes as she tells him she's got a massive favor to ask her papa, while Luca just sits there, clueless, wondering what on earth she's planning. Bayonet locks eyes with Darret and tells him she needs him to fix Shinket. She flashes a smile and tells him straight up, there's no one she trusts to fix it but her dad. It's the divine musket Shinket, an S-rank beast of a weapon, packed with holy power. Darret just freezes on the spot, totally stunned and speechless as he stares at the gun in front of him and his mind races. Could this really be the exact same one he crafted? Bayonet grins and asks if it sparks old memories, laughing about how her toy gun evolved, but Darret just drops his gaze and murmurs, "I knew it," leaving Bayonet standing there, utterly baffled. He can't shake the thought that one day, somehow, he'll finally get why his work keeps flipping like this. Darret tells her he'll hit the forge tomorrow to fix it fast, and she thanks him with a relieved smile. Then Luca asks if they can come watch the repair, and Darret waves him off like, "Yeah, totally, come on through." Darret stands there grinning wide, swept up in the joy that the younger generation is finally throwing real attention his way. Just wait, because. But the vibe flips instantly when Milital and Izu burst in right behind him, wearing those scary, shadowed expressions like trouble is already here. Milital looks like she's seconds away from snapping, telling him he's been way too happy for far too long. Then Izu throws out a creepy grin and asks, like he's testing him, if he really wants to see Bayonet that badly. Darret breaks into a cold sweat and flails his hands, trying to talk his way out of it. Then Milital cuts him off on the spot and shuts down his excuse with one clear truth: that's not what happened at all. Spotting his opening, Darret blurts out that he has to get ready for tomorrow, then bolts out of there like his life depends on it. With the girls left behind, the story kicks into the next morning at the smithy. Hammers are already roaring, and the whole place buzzes with energy. Bayonet, Milital, and Luca kick back inside while Darret gets serious, dropping at his bench to inspect the gun up close. He squints through the sights, gives a sharp nod, and starts pinpointing exactly what has to be fixed. While the action's going down, the other guys are busting their tails in the back, pounding metal on metal to keep the shop blazing nonstop. Darret stares hard at the rifle and realizes the barrel is bent slightly to the right, so he snaps to Bayonet and asks if her shots have been drifting. She admits she's seen it too, and she's been forced to aim left just to land a hit. But Darret points out the real kicker. Her mana engravings are grinding away and gutting her energy, and Bayonet realizes he's dead on because she's been getting wiped out way faster during training lately. And Darret points out that the entire weapon is basically crumbling from overuse, and Bayonet shoots Luca a look like, is the damage really from how you're swinging it with your martial arts? But Luca just freezes there, totally lost, and keeps repeating her words back like they mean nothing, because he can't see the connection at all. Bayonet reaches out, grabs the moment, and tells them, "I'll show you exactly what I mean," so she moves so fast it turns into a blur. She rockets past Luca in the shop and leaves him completely blindsided. Before he can even blink, she's got him pinned from behind, the gun's barrel shoved tight against his throat, which actually looks way cooler than you'd expect. He steps back, just watches the whole display, and you can see the real awe on his face. Luca's hands start to shake as she snaps to the captain that you can't just spook him out of nowhere like that. But the captain waves her off and tells him he should be the one who isn't shocked by her moves. She finally lets out a long sigh, grumbling that those standard guns are ridiculously heavy, and wishing the whole squad could glide around lighter, like they weren't weighing each other down with every step. The second Derek gets the sink fixed and working again, he decides it's upgrade time. He's going to max out every single one of everyone's guns, which has the entire squad exploding with excitement, and Bayonet even throws in a playful papa as she thanks him. He tells them he's heading out to snatch the materials he needs, and Bane calls after him, "Have a safe trip," right as he swings out the door. Luca just stands there, frozen in total silence, looking drained beyond belief after everything that happened. And just like that, the forge sputters to life, firing up, roaring, and blasting a wall of fire from deep within. Derek dives straight into the shop, plants himself at his bench, and tears into that long rifle piece by piece. He moved like a surgeon, using a tiny tool to carefully pry out the little screws that kept the frame from falling apart. A sharp little click, then the metal barrel snaps free from the wooden stock like it was never locked on at all, and when Derek hoists the barrel and raises it to his eye, he squints hard through the tube, trying to figure out exactly how bad the damage really is. He pauses and studies the pieces like a strategist, mapping out the exact move that'll snap this disaster back into place. Derek locks onto the barrel, silently scanning every single inch like it's about to strike. He spots his tools lined up perfectly, and a sharp, satisfied smirk tugs at his mouth.